I'm Team Jacob. So
this dude showing up with a freaking 10
There's
ton.
so much, and even if we had more, I don't think it.
oh my god.
Vaughn getting just doesn't burn.
No, that is that Vaughn?
Oh, no, I like this.
You also have gigantic hands.
In that car right now. We didn't fly all the ways here to watch you walk around in a sling.
You love it. I love it. A whole bunch of other people love it. My grandma loves it. My mom loves it. My wife keeps stealing it all the time. What am I talking about? FD merch. I get it. It's gone. Somebody takes it from me. It's like I never even owned it. Believe it or not, 20% of all the FD merch I own has vanished. Just like you saving 20%. It's like it's vanishing. 20% of the cost of your FD merch vanishing. All you got to do, use podcast 25 at checkout. It's like magic. Podcast 25 at checkout, save 20%. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Gettins, and we got another repeat on here, but I feel like it's never really a repeat with Jeff because you and I chat a fair bit. Like I talk with a lot of drivers, but I feel like you and I have at least a 15 or 20 minute conversation at pretty much every event.
Yeah, you got some interesting things to say. So I'm glad to be back on the podcast. Thanks for having me, over here.
Yeah,
and right before you started, I was asking, do you got your drink? So make sure. What kind of special juice you got in there?
Honestly, it's nothing exciting. It's like B vitamins, beta hydroxybutyrate, which is a ketone precursor. Yeah. The off season was rough on me. It was rough on the weight. It was rough on the body. So I'm trying to get like camera ready for this year. So I'm trying to clean up my act a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that a thing?
Right?
Clean up the act?
A little bit. I mean, I think I'm going to try and get into running. I think. I don't know. We'll see. It's a big step.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know if cleaning up the act. I think people know that I like to party, but keep it subtle.
Yeah, you're a subtle partier to start, and then everybody knows you're partying. Like there's like that, you know what I mean? Like you won't see it happening, and then you might see you in the corner just doing like one of these.
You never know.
One
Bro,
drink in your hand, and the next thing you know, there's two.
What's in the cup, bro? What's in the cup?
Yeah. Still rocking Doc. Doc and rum is a good time.
That is exactly the thing, bro. For me, it is Doc and Tennessee Honey.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Jack Daniels, Tennessee Honey. Man, I wish I could remember the Canadian dude's name, but they literally smuggled me in some Canadian whiskey. It looks like the what do you call it? The Leaf.
Was it Tommy LeBear?
No, it was some fans.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Just more of the fan side of things, but it was pretty cool. I don't know how they smuggled it across.
Just makes my life so much easier.
There you go.
It's like any good race program. Just when you think you got it all figured out, you get into a rhythm, something weird happens.
There's always something new that happens with race cars, drifting, something, the truck, like, this is going way too smooth. And then something goes wrong for sure.
I do want to note though, I think what I might do is leave that audio in, and then now people can hear what it's supposed to sound like.
There you go.
Because I'm such a stickler for like sending you guys mics and like making sure the setup is good. That like whatever you just heard, hopefully we've kept that all in.
Yeah.
That's why. Because that to me it's fine, but like, I don't know. I can't listen to a podcast with bad audio.
It's one of the worst things, right? Because usually if you're listening to a podcast or even watching on YouTube, it's like in the workshop in the background, right? So like I will listen to all my buddies, like YouTube's, like even like Forsberg, James Dean, like it might be their recaps, but as long as I can listen to it in the background while I'm working, podcasts, Joe Rogan, all this stuff, right? Yeah. It's just in the background, as long as it sounds good. If it sounds terrible, can't do it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's been upsetting us about HOTPIT, like trying to do live stream things. And that's where like definitely, give credit due on other live stream guys that have like figured out audio. That's one of the hardest things to do at a racetrack.
Yeah, it's tough because like you want the on track audio, right? But then you need announcers and then like, potentially crowd and stuff like that. And to mix it all in together is super, super tough.
Yeah. One mic just blows out the other. Something's too loud.
Yeah.
It is funny how you always hear like the random talking in the background.
Well, it's weird. I mean, one, like the microphone you use for the announcers and stuff like that, the ones we use for FD are the same ones I use for like the podcast when we do the podium show. They're incredible. It's like you could have somebody yelling in front of you and like it'll barely pick it up. So they're just not cheap. I think they're $350 a set. So it's like not a small investment, but same thing. Like you can kind of get away with bad video, but everybody notices bad audio.
Exactly. 100%. And before I forget, I wanted to say congrats on you announcing for Drift Masters.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you. Yeah.
pretty rad.
Yeah. It's wild to say the least. But I don't know. We've got everything basically planned out now. I kind of knew late last year. I think like I was chatting with like a few people at PRI about it. I don't know if you and I chatted about it, but it was kind of like the paperwork wasn't signed yet at that point. And then it was like, okay, new year, everything got signed, and it's like, oh, this is real now. Like I have to do this. Like this is what's happening. So
Yep.
I appreciate that though. Yeah.
No,
it's going to be a busy
cool.
year.
Yeah. Looking forward to following it and seeing your track walks.
Yeah. It should be fun. Speaking of people doing things overseas, how was New Zealand?
Oh man. Yeah, I got to do 2 trips, New Zealand and Taiwan. And kind of similar to what you just said, like none of the deal was set until plane tickets were bought, right? But it was like a conversation that happened a couple months ago. And then I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And then like, is this happening? I don't know if this is happening. And then all of a sudden, oh dang, here's some tickets in the mail, we're going. So then it was like, all right, this is actually happening. Yeah. Dude, New Zealand, for one, that place, dude, is just so beautiful. Like just literally breathtaking. Anywhere and everywhere you're looking is just magical. I kept saying it's like Lord of the Rings, whatever, the grass is greener. I'm not even gonna lie. It's just everything about that place was I felt like I was the mean person there. Everyone was so happy, so talkative. Like as soon as I got on the plane, I remember like the flight attendant was talking to some woman. She's like, oh, you mean to hold your baby for you while you're getting settled in your seat? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. Here's my baby. This dude's like walking around with the baby. I'm like, that doesn't happen in LA.
No.
No. And yeah, dude, just the people there are super, super nice. And gotta say thank you to James, the JDM racing team. Those dudes flew me out there. Of course, Luke Fink invited me, but such nice people over there, man. It's really, really exciting.
It's it's wild. It's wild that such a small, set of islands, not a huge community, like not a huge population. And now we're at the point where drifting is not just big, but huge. I mean, obviously Mad Mike's got a big part of that, but like we're bringing people in. There are people, that's a destination to go drive now, which is phenomenal.
I think it really is becoming one. Unfortunately, I didn't know about it until Luke had told me. It's like we've seen Mad Mike over there forever, right? But I guess I never did my research into seeing D1NZ and looking at it. When I was on the plane, actually, and talking to another woman who was just there for business, casual conversation. She's like, oh, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I'm here for a drift event. She's like, oh, drifting's really cool here. That's big. And it's just definitely a person you wouldn't think would know about it, right? Like nodded here. I'm like, oh, drifting's big here? She's like, oh yeah, everyone knows about drifting. I was like, oh,
that's crazy.
That's pretty cool. Although, it's like, all right, so New Zealand is probably the size of California, but the population is like way, way less,
Yeah.
So it's a fun experience.
It's weird. Like, outside of our sphere, it's obviously not massive. Like most people don't know what it is, hasn't entered the zeitgeist, but like to hear, I guess, when the community is that small, I mean, I guess it would be similar to even like Ireland. Like I've spoken to people that are Irish, but not into motorsports. And I talk about drifting, like, oh yeah, no, I know what that is. Like, I'm like, oh, we just, there's so much to do in the US and in Canada and like these huge populous areas that like, there's hobbies you've never heard of that are massive, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas when you start to get into the smaller communities, like when it gets in there, when it becomes popular, it becomes their everything, which is, I mean, that's exactly what we want. Like that's how the sport's going to grow. Yeah.
I think Mad Mike's done a great job there. Probably similar to Frederick in Norway, right? It's like, they got their town hero. Everyone knows about it. So that's super cool. They got that going on. And then after I wanted to do my research going over there. So I started watching the D1, their live stream D1NZ. And by the way, it has nothing to do with D1 GP, like Japanese drifting. Nothing. It's totally different D1. I asked them, I was like, oh, it's like affiliate. Like, oh no, totally different. And they've been in operation for like 20 years. Dudes down there are super cool. Like they got their stuff together. It's a small island, so it's just been kept small probably because of that. But I don't know if you got the chance to watch any of their live stream. It's pretty good production value.
Caught a few chunks of it. I wasn't, I've been playing catch up with a lot of the, like, I guess, quote unquote off season stuff, but I caught a few moments of it when I could, but yeah, I mean, production quality is right up there. Like it was great to watch. The competition, from what I saw, the driving is high caliber. Like it's there. Like it's definitely, I wouldn't be shocked if in 4 or 5 years, another driver comes out of there that, you know, is very notable.
For sure.
It just seems like a good community.
I want to say, like, of course, the track that I was on, there's always things like in Formula D that you don't know what the drivers are going against. And for this particular track, I was in Topo, and this track, they're like really big on you not touching the grass. So they're like, it's like a 0 if you touch the grass. Basically, the sanction body gets fined. They're paying for a lot of, you know, what's happening there. The track's just like pissed off. They're going to shut the thing down. But this just is what it is, right? It's a very beautiful racetrack. They're just like, hey, do your thing. Just stay on the track. So that makes that track even narrower. Because, you know, in FD, when I first went there, I'm going to be honest with you, I was putting a tire off on every single zone. I'm like, oh, man, someone's paying for this. Sorry. But that's how we are in FD, right? Like, it's rear tires on the, you know, outside edge of the track. And this place is like, no, just get your back bumper like in that part of the zone. Like, we're giving you a 3-foot buffer room, so you don't have to do that. We want you to stay on the track. So it's a pretty narrow track. And so those guys that were navigating it really well were doing a great job. You know, and it's you probably can't see it on TV, but like the hill that you first go over shoots downhill and back up. That's something it's like always hard to tell on TV.
Yeah, it's I mean, unique track layouts, like we don't really get enough elevation. You know, Utah's obviously elevated, but like really Atlanta's kind of it, where we're really fighting a lot of big uphill and downhill, and that plays into it. I mean, you get the downhill in Utah, but like not quite the same and not quite as jarring. It's very gradual kind of going down. And though, I mean, in the car, you're picking up a fair bit of speed, but yeah, it's, I do enjoy looking at other tracks. I mean, any track that I go to, I immediately look for like, okay, how could we run an FD layout here? Right. Like a Coda or something like that. You're like, okay, could we take these corners?
Dude,
like,
drifting right
like,
there, bro. You can't go shopping
dude,
without, you know, getting your cart sideways on a freeway on ramp, just like visualizing. Don't do it. I'm just saying, like, but, you know, visualizing.
What's happening too with like Drift Appalachia and like all the kind of like mountain drifting stuff becoming big, or like legal street drifting, if you will. Every road takes on a different look now, where I'm like, oh, like what about this? Like, what if we, you know, did something like this, or like, how could somebody set this up? But I don't know. I guess that's the point that I'm at, where I'm kind of looking for it everywhere. Although not a lot of windy roads here in Florida. Not really known for their windy roads.
Yeah, sure. You're in Florida now. Yeah, not a lot of windy roads, not even a lot of hills. You know, when my buddies, Chris Jackson, my crew chief, when he comes from Florida over here, he's just like, your freaking hills are gigantic, you know? Like, we have actual grades that we have to go over, you know, the Grapevine, you know?
Yeah.
The pass.
Yeah. I grew up in a hilly area too, so to come here where it's just, I mean, you're just on the water table. You know, you're at ocean level everywhere you go. It's definitely a little different, but it's, I don't know, it was 78 degrees today? Whereas at home, they're preparing for like 4 feet of snow.
78 degrees, but probably like 60% humidity, 90% humidity?
Yeah, it wasn't quite that humid. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So when I went to Taiwan, that's how I was nervous about that. Because I asked them, I was like, what's the weather like? I'm like, oh, it's hot. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sweating my whole time. Like, and I looked it up and it said 68 degrees with 90% humidity. I was like, what does that even feel like? Is that just a cold sweat? You know, because Florida is like a hot, icky sweat. Yeah.
Florida's in that regard, like, the term gross isn't great. I mean, I'm sure a few people use the term gross around Florida, but it's, I've only had a few, I moved in like late August. So I kind of missed the worst of it, if you will. But moving into the house in late August was pretty nasty. Yeah. Unloading the trailer was not a good time.
Yeah. I always, I don't ever want to advocate not going to a drift event, but if there's one that you were going to miss, it's probably Orlando.
The hard part now is I live 20 minutes away from the track.
Okay.
Like it's right
a great
there.
Spot. It's got all the cool stuff to do. You know, all the amusement parks are there. You know, I think you're getting a new Universal Studios something.
Probably.
Yeah, like literally there's a gator shop right down the street, a gigantic gator you can go into. Everything's there.
Yeah, Gator World. Yeah, it's a good time. Like there's lots to do. I mean, but when it comes to the weather and all that stuff, it's a tough one. Yeah. It's not, when I recommend events to go to, it's not usually making my top 5.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Although the battles last year were insane.
Epic.
Some of the best that we've seen in years. If not, I mean, we always go back to that Jonathan Castro was a James Dean battle, but like, I don't know, man. Connor Shanahan, Brandon Sorensen.
Those
like,
battles were insane. Yeah. And then
that
LZ.
might take the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. LZ in there too. I mean, it was an epic.
That track
event.
is so simple that it allows for that crazy tandem stuff to happen. Right. You know, that's the track where we usually get a lot of 90-point runs. And it's one of those tracks. It's like, yeah, it's super simple to initiate and get on each other's door. But then the divider is just that damn jump, right? And the smoke line through the center. You get lost in the smoke line and that jump bites you. You just come out on the wrong side of the smoke line, the wrong side of that clipping point, and it's all gone.
You see it too. Like you'll see a driver come off the bank in the chase and then just dwell in it for like a beat too long. And then they, you know, I feel like there's a panic that kind of sets in. You're like, I got to get out of here. And next thing you know, lead driver's 30 feet in front of you and you're on the wrong side. And it's like, it happened over and over and over again, even to drivers who you wouldn't expect it. And it was just like, oh, okay. But I don't know. I don't know how you combat that. I mean, I wouldn't, honestly, I wouldn't. Like it's such a risky spot in a very simple track.
Yeah, I think that's like you said, it's a risky spot. It rewards proper timing. I think some of the fans maybe don't realize how hard that part is. And so that's like a make or break kind of deal right there. So it's definitely pretty good on some of those drivers that just got the timing down perfect. And it's bit me in the butt multiple times. And you come out and you're very confident that, oh, I'm going to be on this dude's door. This is going to be amazing. You come out and that dude's over there and you're over here. Yeah. And the clipping point's there and you're like, oh, it's gone. You know? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, go watch in-car. Like go watch like other drivers' recaps and stuff like that. And you see how long you're bathing in smoke for. And it's like, I'm sure behind the wheel, it feels like forever.
It does.
Even though it's like a second and a half of being blind. But like being blind for a second and a half at what? You're coming off the bank at 65, maybe 70? Like, just, yeah.
It's
I had an example, but I don't want people trying it at home. I was like, close your eyes doing 70, but please don't.
No, close your eyes and run through your hallway and see if you can make your, turn into your bedroom.
That's actually a good point. Yeah. Close your eyes, run down your hallway and make it in the living room without smoking something.
Yeah. Do it like maybe 3 times visualizing. Then that 4th time, close your eyes and just run for it and see if you make it.
Yeah.
That's not going to tell you're going down. No, that's a track I love to hate. For sure.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's the improvement that they did though last year with the pavement coming off the bank. That was really good. That helped a ton.
It seemed like we didn't have as many broken tie rods or suspension components because like it was pretty nasty for taking off tie rods.
They used to we used to debeat a lot right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I've debeated a tire there at like 14 PSI. That's a lot.
Jeez.
You never debeat it at 14 PSI. That's usually like, you get down to like 10 and below. That's where that starts happening. But yeah, literally that part just, car compresses, hits your bump stops. It's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty nasty. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they can do a little bit more. I was supposed to go out last weekend and drive it, but didn't end up lining up correctly. So hopefully next weekend, maybe a weekend after, I'll be able to go and drive. Although I don't think I'll be running the bank. So gotta warm up to it. I'm a little rusty, so I need to get back into it.
Gotcha. For sure.
It'll come back. It'll come back. But
I did want to touch base on some of just because it's so unique to me and what I've just experienced was the Taiwan thing and the New Zealand thing. Like, this is my first time going across the world, different countries and seeing some drifting. And it's definitely something that I kind of wanted to just like talk about on the show for sure. There's a huge difference in like the culture in Taiwan. And I don't even know how long they've been drifting in Taiwan, to be honest with you. I think it's been, the sanction body that I went to has been on like their 5th or 7th year.
Jeez.
And I think it's been longer than that, but these dudes that I got to go out with was the Silver Mist racing team. And they've got, and probably the whole field has got some badass cars, but it's like, what I explained to them, and this is no shade to them at all, but what I explained to them was like, I feel like all of these cars were kind of, all the good parts were purchased out of a magazine, and they didn't know how to connect all the centerpieces. So for example, when I got there, badass Jay-Z, full dog box, like Samsonus dog box, full quick change rear end, like all the good parts, right? But I broke a dry shaft. And then we pulled the dry shaft out, and I looked at it before I even drove the car. I was like, that looks small. And then afterwards I look at it, I'm like, dang, this thing is tiny. Like thin wall thickness, thin diameter, tubing. And I was like, look, I'm like, it's not even balanced. I'm just like, man. So this is where I'm getting at. And I told these guys, I'm like, you're able to buy all the good parts. You just got to find the knowledge, right? And I think that's a big difference looking into what we have and other, guys like Drift Masters, just other places where it's been around for a long time. Formula D's been around for a long time. We've got parts and knowledge. And it was very interesting to go over there and see that they've got the parts because they can afford the parts over there.
Right.
But they don't got the knowledge and the small shops. Like when we broke the dry shaft, I'm like, all right, where do we go to fix this? They're like, oh, there's probably no one around here. Like that's a next week thing. Oh man, this is a dry shaft. There's got to be a dry shaft shop around here. Like, let's just go get this cut up, weld it, bang it in, And so that was an interesting difference in culture there. The whole BC Racing team is there too. Not like the local guys, but BC Racing is, one of the companies based out of Taiwan. So they had a pretty good team there with a bunch of nice cars. They flew in me, Daigo, what's his name? Lori. He was out there. And so a bunch of badass dudes. And it was just interesting culture for us to see that, where they're at. And I think that's another thing that I just want to say, thank you to those guys for bringing me out there. But I think that's another aspect of drifting that we're going to see pretty soon once they figure that out.
What do you think the cause of the lack of knowledge is? Is it just a time thing? Is it something where they're just not as open to sharing it, or are people just not driving as hard where those things are breaking?
Probably. For example, when I take my dry shaft to one of these shops to get it built, or my engine to one of these, good shops that take it to get built, usually the guy's like, how much horsepower are you making? I'll be like, oh, it's 1,000. It's badass. Like 1,000 horsepower. I was like, oh, that's it? Like, what do you mean that's it? Like, oh, it's under 2,000? Well, yeah, man, it's 1,000. They're like, oh, okay, this will be fine. 4-inch aluminum dry shaft. It'll hold no problem. And so I think around here, we're so used to big shops or shops that have been around long enough with drag racing that understood how to really break things. Right. So that was drag racing in our culture, is grip and torque, and grip and torque is what's going to break stuff. Right. So if they don't have the grip and the torque yet, they're not breaking things, but they're now getting there. So that's something I think was there. And then like nuts and bolts, making sure you're using high quality fasteners in certain areas. I think that's another thing where it's like, again, we're used to breaking things. We've done it for a while. So that's something that's can be improved.
Yeah. The infrastructure for horsepower is interesting because it was kind of like, I'm going to open up a fresh wound for a lot of people, but like, it was kind of my argument with the RB versus Jay-Z.
Sure.
Right. The Jay-Z came over here very early and it was adopted very quickly. And it was, it had, American money behind building it out. Whereas the RB took a lot longer for it to become a populous engine. So switch those around. Is it possible that the RB could have been better sooner? Maybe. I mean, there's some inherent flaws, but there's some inherent flaws with the Jay-Z that they just dealt with, right? It's similar to, you could go through a ton of different engines like that where the American economy and what we're able to do and the passion for motorsports here is so unmatched than anywhere else in the world that like, if American racing is like, no, this is the thing we want to do, the budget, the research and all that stuff will develop it into something that's obscene. Yeah. Like it's just, and it's in it, the way you can get a billet 2J block, like you could just, all the info's there. Anything you need to make any amount of horsepower.
And the money is spent there. I mean, my opinion as of here, RBs suck. Okay. I'm not saying that because that's my opinion, but you could cut that how you want. But if you're here and you look at RB guys, they're constantly having failures. They're constantly not making as much power. They're constantly blowing up. But that's here. That's because we don't have the knowledge of knowing how to keep them alive. You go across the pond, right? And then dudes are like, RBs are perfectly fine. They know how to fix their camshafts from them not breaking. They know how to keep horsepower in those things. They know how to not break the transmissions. And you're like, oh, I thought RBs suck. And they're like, oh, it's just at home because we don't have the knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just one of exactly that's what you said, just having the knowledge of what you're doing. With that said, almost every team in Taiwan had a 1J. It's readily available. Toyota is the number one selling car there. So it's just like you can buy a JZ anywhere there.
I would almost argue, just to get people mad, I personally like the sound of a 1J over a 2J. Maybe I'm just jaded over how many 2Js I've heard over the years. The 1.5, you know, the Frankenstein J or whatever you want to call it, arguably may even sound better than that. But I'm a big fan of a 1J.
Yeah.
Like,
so
no issues with
I
it
have
whatsoever.
an FC, and I always tell people, oh yeah, I got an FC. They're like, oh yeah, you love rotors? I'm like, no, I got rid of that thing a long time ago. I have a 1.5 JZ. Yeah. In my FC. I mean, I've blown that thing up too, but yeah, that's what I've got in there. It works great. Yeah. 1.5, like good torque. I like that one.
So taking experience from both of those, you know, drifting events and cultures and everything else, like, how do you feel in the US we're positioned from a skill level versus where they're at? Are they a few years behind? Is the driving on par, or is the mechanical what's holding them back? Like, I'm not trying to, like, I guess I am asking to, like, a comparison, but like to give people an idea of where other parts of the world are at when it comes to their level of drifting.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's tough to say. You know, I've literally only done the 2 events outside of the US. The dudes in Taiwan, there's a couple rippers for sure who were just getting down. They flew in a bunch of dudes who were from different countries. So we were all able to see how good we were able to adapt. You know, so I think that they were pretty surprised at how good a lot of us were from other countries. But yeah, they just need more time in Taiwan. Oh, also, their track is very small. Their practice track is something similar to like here, like AVS. They don't have the large tracks like we do to really let the cars, you know, spread their wings. And one of the things is, like, I remember when I drifted St. Louis, the old track, the really big one. After I did that, I went to Texas, and I used to think Texas was big. And then when I went back to Texas, I'm like, oh, wow, this track is small. So like my perception of the track all of a sudden changed, and I felt like it was small, and I felt like I could drive that track so much faster, and like things were in slow motion to me. So I think the fact that us as FD drivers, at least that I can speak for, have some pretty big, badass, fast tracks. So when we go to these small tracks, it's like cakewalk for us. So that could be something, for example, to them, you know, other than the track that I drove, which was like a homemade track in a parking lot, which they had nice K-rails all the way around it. They like made it look super professional in Taiwan. But their other track that they normally use is something smaller than like Ebisu. Like it was the BC Racing headquarters drift track. It was a second gear kind of track, you know, just something very tiny. You're only getting in the third gear if you have horsepower. So that's something that makes a bigger change for us for sure. Wow.
Yeah, it's an all, I mean, what you were raised and trained on, right? Like but that may lend to better technical driving, or they may be better in certain aspects. Like there's more, a smaller, tighter track's going to need way more transitions. You're going to have to, there's less room to catch up if there is a mistake.
Another thing is like the New Zealand guys, I was thinking about it. Probably both countries, they don't drive nearly as much as we do. The New Zealand guys, I was asking them, I was like, oh, how often do you guys drive? It's like, oh man. Like James, the dude who owns JDM Racing, he hadn't driven in 6 months before like pulling his car out. And he actually did great. He got 4th place on the first day that I was with him in his R32. But yeah, like some of these guys are like, oh yeah, I haven't driven since like last season. You know, that's the way FD drivers used to be, right? Like 10 years ago, all I did was drive an FD. It's all I could afford, right? There was Pro-Am events, but either I wasn't allowed to drive them, or there was a certain other event and, you know, couldn't afford to drive it. So all we did was FD. Now, FD drivers are probably driving at least once every 2 weeks, you know, most of us, I would say. And that's like kind of a normal thing. And if you're not doing that, you know, I got my sim rig behind me. So I try to jump on that thing at least once a month at a minimum if I'm not driving, you know, get some practice.
That's fair. That's really fair. I mean, the accessibility, and I think I want to give drifters like in general like a huge kudos of like helping to uphold the sport and convince tracks to allow us to go and then allow us to stay.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's one thing for us to convince them and say, hey, let us try this out. But, you know, knock on wood, we've done a pretty good job of self-policing and staying at these tracks and showing them that it is a viable income stream for tracks. I just did a talk this week for RPM, which is Racing Promotion Monthly. They had a convention down in Orlando, and I did it on just like some marketing stuff. But obviously, I explained my connection to drifting, and a few of the track owners came up and said, "Oh, we've had a lot of people, like a lot of drifters, try and get in, but I don't want them tearing up the asphalt." And I'm like, that's a massive that's not going to happen. Like if anything, they're going to rubber in your asphalt more than you've ever had it before. Like the amount of additional rubber and petroleum that's going to get into the asphalt again is actually pretty substantial. If anything, we kind of help it.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely that mindset, right, from all these like track owners that see drifting. They probably just assume it's going to mess up the track. But for the most part, as long as you stay off the edge of the track, it doesn't really eat away at it at all. Yeah, it kind of adds rubber to it and probably, like oiling a wood table, man. It just makes it last longer.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was explaining. I did say like, hey, depending on what your track is, if you've got runoffs, if you've got grass, that's where you're going to run into some issues and just be prepared for that. But I offered 2 tracks. I said, listen, if you're interested, I'm happy to send over a couple of drivers, people I know, and let them put on a demo. Let them come out to a different event and just go out and run some tandem together. You could have a monster truck event. You could have a, circle track event. Just let them come out and see what the fans do and let us show you, that this is legitimate motorsport and we're respectful and we're good ambassadors for the racing community. And
I mean, think about how much revenue we've had to have added to most of these racetracks across the country. Like when I look at Willow Springs or Apple Valley Speedway over here, both of these tracks would only have like one race event, once a month at best of some time attack stuff. Then drifting came along and all of a sudden we're renting one of the tracks, once a week, over here in California at least. There's events at least twice a month in Los Angeles or in like Willow Springs, probably twice a month. There's something up at Willow Springs. Now Apple Valley Speedway, that was just a go-kart track before, now that was a, Granger. And now it's, man, people are having birthday party drift events there. So it's just constantly being used, So it's like same thing. Orange Show Speedway, where we're hosting most of our hot pit events this year. That is a circle track event that literally probably doesn't get used that much outside of, their, what do they do? Like 8 events, I think usually. Maybe they'll do 10 if they had something special. But, we brought in extra revenue and fans to that place. So I think a lot of racetracks should look into drifting and open it up because there's a lot of revenue to be made for them. And it's, just more car culture at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really helps out everyone.
Yeah, it's been good to see. I mean, obviously there's situations where it hasn't gone as well and people have screwed things up, but that's going to happen no matter what. And I'm happy to be a part of the sport and happy when I hear from tracks or organizers like, yeah, we brought in drifting. It's keeping things afloat. We've got, something going on every month. Like, that added 8, 10 events to our schedule every year. And the nice thing is the fans are coming too. Like for a long time, it was just events and the drivers were paying the bills, right? Like drivers were renting it out. You would split the bill based on how many guys came out. And that was how the track was making their money. And now tracks are seeing it as a legitimate fan resource where they can make gate, they can make parking, they can make concession off of these events, which is great because it's been a long time coming.
I think that I do have a little bit of a gripe with some of the racetracks though.
Okay.
Any of these racetracks are usually a place that allows someone to come in, rent the track, charge the drivers. Most of the time you're just kind of covering the rental fee like you just said. A lot of the other tracks though, when they're trying to keep all the gate money, not allow you to keep any of the food and beverage money, not allow you to charge at the gate, bring in sponsors. To me, that's kind of like you have a place of business. you need to allow your customers to make revenue so that they can return, so that they can continue to make some money. So it's like, if you have this rental thing that's meant to make money, you need to allow that individual sanction body or whoever it is to make money so that they can come back multiple times. And now, as an event organizer myself, we're finding that, at a lot of different tracks that we go to, they're like, oh no, you can rent the place. Can we charge the door? No, you can't. Can we charge parking? No, you can't. Can we get any food and beverage? No, you don't. It's like, how do you expect me to run a business here?
I think honestly, a lot of it is a scarcity mindset. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of organizations and track management, just what I do day to day. They're so afraid of closing. They're so afraid that this is their last meal, that they're scrounging and fighting and just trying to get anything that they can. And that scarcity mindset makes people think very short term. They don't think long term, because all they're trying to do is cover the next insurance or the next bill or the next water bill or whatever. I wouldn't say like I grew up poor by any means, but like I didn't grow up with a ton of money. I had a very rough financial, probably 6-7 years when I first had kids. I mean, I lived in a trailer for 6 years, nothing against it. It's just like, that's how we had to survive. I had 3 kids in a trailer and I was working a shit job. I remember what that was like. I remember going like, okay, we can't drive anywhere else because we don't have money for gas to go anywhere else. And that scarcity mindset, you are looking for quarters in the couch. And I think a lot of racetracks are in a very similar situation where they feel like, well, no, like they've rented it, but like we have an we got to make anything we can out of this. And it's a fear. I don't agree with what they're doing. I think you're on the right side of that, where it has to be a cooperation. It has to be a split or something. There's got to be a better agreement.
The older crowd, right? Probably the old guard still running the racetracks that probably still aren't necessarily into drifting. So they're not necessarily concerned about fans coming. They're just like, oh yeah, you got your 30 racers, pay us, come in. And, with what at least I'm trying to do, similar to Formula D, similar to a lot of other sanction bodies out there, we're trying to bring fans to these racetracks. We're trying to have a good time. And so that's been something that's been pretty tough. It's like thinking about like, all right, so Irwindale closed, right? Super sucks. But they did a good job. Tim Huddleston, the dude who ran it last, pros and cons on what he did, but he would rent that place out to anyone that wanted to do a car show. Now that was good because he was allowing others to make money. He was allowing others to come in, create a safe spot for car show, do the burnout thing like every Friday night, Thursday night. On the other side of that, it like kind of almost diluted it in a way, because it was almost every 2 weeks there was probably a car show there. So it was really cool that we had that when we did, but now we don't. So we'll see where that goes. But now he was someone who was trying to make as much revenue as possible. So somewhere in the middle, you got to find the balance.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not an envious. I'm not envious of their position by any means, because you have insane overhead. I mean, I know what racetracks have to pay for insurance alone.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
It's not a money-making venture. They're not printing money. I don't care what anybody says. There are ways. It's just not easy, especially if you're doing it that way and you don't have a NASCAR or an Indy or an NHRA where, there's one racetrack I did marketing for, and they would pay all of their bills with one weekend. There was just one giant event that they ran, and everything else on top of that was like how they would do upgrades and maintenance, but like to pay their insurance and their electrical and water and stuff like that for the year. It came down to one weekend. And if it rained, like you can get weather insurance and stuff like that, but like even still, if it rained, they're like, that's it. We're closing.
Yeah.
Like we can't do it. So it's tough. It's tough. I don't know enough about what's happening, and maybe you can explain a bit more, like how drifting and all these other things are going to survive in California with Irwindale closing, but it's going to be even more difficult now.
It's definitely going to be more difficult. Losing Irwindale is it's one of those things where it's like, it's just there. You don't think it's ever going to go away. But we knew, at least I knew it was going away for at least the last 2 years. We knew it was going to happen. Andy Luck was always, pretty open with us in the drivers' meetings about, what he thought was going to happen the next few years. And I got to know Tim Huddleston, and he was kind of telling us like, hey, writing's on the wall. Let's figure this out while we can. So I'm very gracious that we got to do our last 3 hot pit events there and, actually kind of close the House of Drift with our event. So it's pretty stoked on that. But our plan to keep drifting alive, I mean, I think that drifting, no matter what, well, it's hard to say that. You've got Willow Springs that I think is probably safe. It's a historical, event place. So I think that you can't just build warehouses there. There's really no reason to.
It's
Apple Valley Speedway
Speedway
is owned by someone in the racing industry. I think people know who own it, but if he doesn't want people to know, I won't say it. But it's owned by someone who's in the racing industry. So cool guy. That's not going anywhere. But as far as like what Hot Pit's going to do, we've got Orange Show Speedway. Luckily we were able to work out some contracts with them, and then we've got Kern County, which is also owned by Tim. So he's taking up a good amount of assets from Irwindale Speedway up to Kern County. And that place is going to be pretty cool in the future once he's able to build what he wants to do. It's going to have a drag strip. It's going to have a burnout pit. It's going to have just more things there to have some fun. It already has like a dirt track, like a circle dirt track. It already has, I think it's like what do you call it? Like just like a bike autocross. What do you call it? Brain farting on this. Motorcycles, their bikes.
Autocross. Yeah. Just a motocross.
Yeah, whatever you call it. I think he's going to actually turn that into more of a rally style course. I think he's going to like cut down some of the hills. He wants it to be all auto, right? Just all automotive, having some fun there. So I will tell you, we had our round 2 of Hot Pit there last year, and we came after the LZ World Tour. And I don't think either events did great. To be bluntly honest, for what LZ pulls in other places, he does, amazing in other events. And he came out there and it just wasn't as big. It was still huge, but it wasn't big, right? You were there.
Right.
And then so we came, I had my street team passing out flyers to all, a couple thousand people that were there. And our return just wasn't as big as what we get at Irwindale, obviously, or Orange Show Speedway. And so, people ask me, so why are you going back to Kern County? I'm like, well, I can't put all my eggs in one basket because we already lost one basket being Irwindale. If Orange Show goes away, I'm pretty confident that Tim is going to be able to pull some good stuff out of Kern County. So right now, see, here's the thing. I listen to Ryan Sage talk a lot, and I listen to their, sometimes in the drivers meeting, they'll say stuff that has nothing to do with driving, but they're talking about business, So I'll just be sitting there paying attention to what are they doing for the business to keep this ship, floating? And so they'll talk about going to a certain region. And even though it doesn't have a big pool right now, you have to spend time and money there to invest in that region. So that's our goal. Bakersfield's right next door to that. It's right between Los Angeles and, North Cal, San Francisco, Sacramento. So I think once we can really develop an audience there that's, full drifters, car show enthusiasts, burnout dudes, I think we will be able to pull the few thousand people there that we want. So this is going to take a few years.
Yeah. Anecdotally, no data to back this up, but my conversations with a lot of people at that event, because I was at the LZ one, I met very few people from south of Bakersfield, but I met a lot of people north of Bakersfield.
Yep.
Spoke to a few people that did come from the south, and they all kind of said the same thing. Getting up there is a nightmare.
Dudes in Los Angeles don't want to travel, bro. There's everything in 15 minutes. We're a bunch of spoiled dudes.
I get it. But for somebody in the north to come down, it's like, oh, this is different. We don't have this. This is, it's just something different. And there's more of a get in the car and drive culture north of Bakersfield as opposed to south, which is I get in the car only because I have to. Yeah. Right.
When I look at the heat map from that event, that's the most anything north we've ever had, obviously. And we had more people come from up north than we did from down south, which it's a further drive, and it's not even our crowd. But yeah, more people came from the north than from Los Angeles.
Arguably time wise, though, it may even be shorter depending on traffic trying to get out of LA.
Yeah. So that's where we're going to invest some time and see what we can create there. It's definitely if you've ever been to Kern County Raceway, it's a badass track. It's got like a
great
really
facility.
cool feeling to it. It's actually newer than Irwindale. So
It feels like a small Irwindale, and like not even small, but like 80% is big. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like half as big. It felt like, okay, it has a similar vibe. It's got a similar layout. The way you look down in the grandstands into that, like kind of into the track. I was like, oh, this has got a similar vantage. Like I like the way that this is.
yeah, I truly like that place. I like the track layout. So I had a few track designs drawn up, but LZ ended up going there before we did. And I got to drive it. And it was a pretty damn fun track. I was like, you know what? We're going with this. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, go all the way to the walls and use up the whole place. And it was really fun. So we just ended up sticking with that track.
Nice. I like to like up onto the bank a little bit and back down. And
Yeah, it's probably like the closest thing I feel like you can do to like skateboarding in a car. Because it just has that like half pipe, glide up kind of feeling to it. It grips the car up a little bit more. And so you're just like, on throttle going up to it. So you get to chuck it right at it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a neat layout.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, change is scary, man.
Yeah.
Change is scary. And it is. We're doing everything we can to kind of get through it. It feels like a weird time of morning. When Andy posted that with like the grandstands down, it was the first time it hit me. So I mean, with Andy, it could be, but I know it's not.
Just the way they tore it down, it looked so like, why would you do it that way?
Yeah. It was the first time it hit me though. Like that's what it took. Like when we were there, I was like, oh, this is sad. It's the last time and all that stuff. And you've got, way more of a history there than I do. So I can only imagine. But when I saw that video, I was like, it took me a minute. I was like, shit, it's gone. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had already said my goodbyes years ago. So this was just borrowed time and I was happy with it.
Got your coin?
Yeah.
You got your coin?
Yeah. But
I need to get my hands on one of those.
What's it called? I wanted to say the other track that we're doing, and I want to like talk about the track, and then maybe there's someone listening here that can help us out in the future. So the other track is like Orange Show Speedway, right?
Right.
That place is for the most part city owned.
Okay.
It's been very difficult to work with, but the guys who run it, who's like the promoter, he's been able to help us out a lot. He's been able to like kind of jump through the hoops, figure out how we can get in there and what to do. That's just another one of those tracks. It's like only seen. I mean, hold on. There was drifting there a long time ago. Drift Buffet did it first.
Oh,
for sure.
All right.
Yeah. Drift Buffet was there years ago. That's where I used to compete with like Matt Powers, Pat Mordaunt, a bunch of dudes. 2007, I want to say. Somewhere in there. But yeah, Terry Henderson used to, run Drift Buffet, but that was so long ago. Like, it's just been dead forever. There was actually dirt in the middle of it for a long time. They had only done circle track stuff. They tried dirt circle track. They tried off-road tracks. And, when we came in and proposed trying to bring drifting back, it was such a difficult thing to try to get them to wrap their minds around on us coming in and how we wanted to do it. But we were able to convince them. And then, this year with Irwindale going away, we got 3 events there. But that's another venue where it could be so cool if we could clean it up. It's in San Bernardino. So I'm really glad that they have that place. But it's definitely like, I've been asking the track, I'll clean this place up, bro. Like I'll put paint on the wall, it's just, again, like city owned. They're not wanting to make it look as fresh as it could. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's somewhere, I guess it reminds me a lot of Orlando. But they're not city owned though.
Yeah. I wonder, if they would be open, like just a day where we can get a bunch of drifters to come out and clean up the track.
All the HOTPIT drivers would be totally down to do that. But it's something that we want to do. Like I keep giving them all these ideas and I'm like, hey, can we like build this structure right here? Can I come in and fix this? Can we like paint this? And they're just like, no, can't do that. So I'm just waiting until they're like more comfortable with us to where we can come in and just do a bunch of cool rowdy stuff to make it look not just more presentable, like a funner place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder. They do a big raves there too. That's like their moneymaker. So they literally don't care about drifting. They don't care about circle track stuff. They're just like, we got the raves, that's the main thing. Yeah. Actually, what was it? Hot Pit year 1, we were supposed to have 4 rounds and our last round was too close to October. And this had already happened at Drift Buffet a long time ago to where like, hey, your date's voided because we've got a rave coming in. So yeah. So year 1, they really didn't care. Now that we're a pretty good revenue for them, drifters like to drink. So when we come in, the bar is pretty, busy. So they're like, oh yeah, these guys, they can come back. They're good. They're good. So we're just trying to make our pathway into making it something bigger. Yeah, it's been going up.
Grid Life has proved that raving and drifting culture can live hand in hand. So maybe there's something there. I don't know how you would do it. But maybe.
I would, that's something that I like want to venture down and see what their pathway was and how they got to where they are. I've been like literally like picking it like Ryan Sage and Jim Lau, like asking them like, dude, how did you get to where you were? Like, by the way, like, so, Jim, what did he do? He did an interview not too long ago, right? Who was with you? Was it Jim or Ryan?
What?
I
had an interview with Jim last year.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Like the end of last year.
Yeah, it was that one. I was listening to it and he was talking about, just like how young he was when he created Formula D, when they created Formula D and where they were. I'm just like, how the heck did you do all this when you were that young? My dumb ass was just trying to race cars.
Lack of sleep, man.
Yeah, I get the lack of sleep part, but the business part, like being so smart to create such a huge sanction body across the freaking country and bring in, all the things they did. I don't know if it was that. Like, I don't want to take anything away from them, but like when you're, this, like when you're in the situation, you're not seeing it for what it is. Mm-hmm. You're just doing the thing, right? Like so I'm assuming for them, it was just like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next, like, this is what we're doing. Just keep moving, keep momentum going. The other part was Andy Luck hearing his interview, which I'm glad you had on.
That was a wild one.
Yeah.
That was a wild one.
I heard about all the things you had to delete. That's great.
Bro. The original one was probably half an hour longer.
That's rad. I want to hear that one. I've probably heard worse. I'm sure I've heard worse. I've heard some stories from him where I'm like, I can't believe that happened. But all right, I guess I can. But yeah, hearing Andy's story, how young he was, like closing business, moving out here. I actually asked Andy about it afterwards. I'm like, so you just moved to California to help these two nerds out to create this business. And he gave me more of the backstory. I was like, all right, it makes more sense. Cause like, how the heck did you afford this? But they hustled, bro. They hustled hard. So yeah, I appreciate that. Cause I'm seeing all that now trying to run Hot Pit with my business partner, RJ, Christina's part of Hot Pit and she's running all of our billing and accounting and stuff. It's like there's on a day to day, it's just the three of us trying to figure this crap out. And there's so much to it.
Yeah, but the same could be said about your driving career. Like, how many people are sitting there listening right now going like, well, how the hell did Jeff make it? Like, don't take that in the wrong way, but how the hell did he figure it out? How the hell is he affording it? Like from the outside looking in, FD seems like an impossible task to so many people.
It does.
And, now you're sitting there, I'm sure every year's got its own struggles and some years are worse than others, but like, you got a pretty good method down. You know how you're going to make it. You got it mostly figured out. I had
no method down for the first 5 years, maybe 10 years.
And I guarantee FD was in a similar boat.
Yeah, probably.
Where it was just figure it out. Every shit situation, you're just figuring it out. The difference between you and FD and anybody else that's made it to a level that other people aspire to is they didn't give up. That's it.
Yeah.
They just every hurdle you figured out a way and you didn't stop trying. Everybody that's shit as it is, everybody who's sitting in their garage with an X-Pro car gave up. That's it. There's certain circumstances where you have to figure it out. Rad Dan is probably my best example of this. He got put into a really shit spot. Mm-hmm. It's not my place to explain the entire thing, but I know, he was in a really bad spot. He did the right thing, stepped back, made the correct decision, but didn't give up and came back.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably wouldn't have took a step back, but that's just my dumbass of like wanting to always be here. But no,
Right.
I appreciate him and Renee's, grit, tenacity to continue and get back into it. It's definitely
grit,
anytime
man.
somebody takes a step back, that's the hardest part, right?
Well, we've seen it. We've seen almost every driver that's left has said, oh, I'm just taking a bit of time. And how many actually came back?
Yeah, it's tough. And, that's, again, we're also similar to my mindset of creating Hot Pit was thinking of all of my old driver buddies who pretty much just said, oh, I can't afford to do this anymore. I can't afford to travel the country. I can't afford that much time. That was part of the mindset of like, well, why can't we have something local badass that's similar to Formula D that you don't have to spend $100,000 on, that you don't have to take off a full week to do, that you can just go take off a Friday and a Saturday, get in a good race weekend with, a couple thousand fans and then go home. So that's, I like literally called up like, I don't know, Pat Mordaunt, Cyrus Martinez, Marissa Ornelas, like any like old FD driver. I'm like, hey, do you still have your old pro car? Like, what's up, bro? What are you doing? Most of them are like, nah, Jeff, that's packed away, dude. I sold it or something. But I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. So I found a group, a whole new group of badass dudes who are pretty good. So pretty proud of all these guys. But it's part of, figuring out where we can get some new drivers and bringing back these old FD drivers that I know that they're retired, but they still got the itch. I'm trying to fucking
got it.
Like Forrest Wang, I'm always bugging him. JTP, I was bugging him at SEMA.
Good.
I'll bug them all, bro. Like, Justin, where are you at, dude? You got a badass Mustang.
Dude.
No one's going to hate you. Everyone's going to love you. Bring that sucker out. Come whoop some ass, make $5,000.
There's a thing in hockey called like the old timers games where they'll bring like ex NHL players to go against like, cops or fire department or like the college team or something. Mm-hmm. Some of the best hockey you're ever going to watch. I would love to see like an ex-pro league where it's whatever it is, they're on 255, something, right? Like however you want to restrict it. And it's like the only requirement is you have to be an ex-pro or pro spec driver. Mm-hmm. And they just go at it. Cause then there's that common respect of like, hey, we all kind of made it to this level and we all know what the hell we're doing, but we're just a little bit older now, or we just don't have the money to be doing it all the time. And we're going to just throw down a top 16 and beat the hell out of our cars for a weekend, just like old times. Like, that sounds like a great time.
I will call out JTP on something that he said to me a long time ago, because I don't give a damn. But I was doing XDC, like, when was this? 2009, 2010? I don't know, 2011, way back when, right? And so I remember he was there and I was driving my 13 or something. He's like, what are you doing here? So you're a pro driver. I'm like, I'm just here to have some fun, man. Keep driving. He's like, what if you get beat by one of these dudes? You look like an idiot. I'm like, I don't give a damn. I just want to drive and have some fun. Like all I care about is just having fun with my boys and ripping it. And I got third place. I did get beat, by someone, and that was fine. There's I guess where I'm going with that is there's definitely probably a lot of pride in getting beat by someone who's not a full pro. You can go home and justify, I got my ass kicked by, Gucci or Vaughn or whoever, and it's all good. You go home and say you got beat by a hot pit driver, then you're gonna be like, you don't want to talk about it.
I will say though, hot pit is very quickly becoming the biggest breeding ground for pro drivers. Like, the roster that's there driving every weekend is nuts. And obviously the format and the organization, all that stuff, but to truly get that good that quick, the only way to do it is to drive with people of the caliber that are there. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Like,
and so there's a few things to how hot pit works. And I'm sure you saw the announcement, right? So now if you are the championship driver in hot pit, you will get a full pro license,
which is
fast pass straight to pro. And so I talked to Kevin Wells about this. I was like, hey, here's what I'd like to do. And he's like, tell me more. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, hot pit has 5 rounds. Pro spec only has 4 rounds. We have pro drivers and pro spec drivers. I think last year and the year before, I think we had like 14 to 15 licensed, FD drivers. Yeah. And I'm like, and these other dudes are absolute badasses. They just can't afford to travel the country. So I feel like it's actually harder to be the championship driver in hot pit than it would be in pro spec. And he's like, all right. You know, I'm listening. He's like, but what about the travel? And I'm like, well, what do you mean about the travel? He's like, well, you know, it's important that people learn how to travel, you know, and get their shit together. I'm like, okay, you're kind of right. But half of our drivers are not even from California. Dustin Farrow, who was our championship driver 2 years ago, Arizona.
Yeah.
Blaze Potts, you know, where's he from? Utah? Like bottom of Utah, something north of Vegas, wherever's in the middle of that. Rudy Henson, Shelly Henson. We got guys from Washington. We got Luke Fink from freaking wherever, you know, Australia.
Yeah.
Part of Down Under he's coming from. We had people from Japan, different countries. I'm like, so it's like literally more than half of our drivers are not even SoCal based. And so that was kind of that argument. I'm like, I think they know how to travel. And like nowadays, dude, like people travel for a fun event. You know, it's not uncommon for people to go to like No-Coast Bash, travel, go have some fun. I don't think the travel argument is a thing anymore.
Where I think it's an argument, and this is where I feel like we've let down drivers more than anywhere else, is on the financial end of things. Mm-hmm. I don't think we teach enough financial literacy or enough sponsorship management literacy. That is my biggest pet peeve with what we're doing. And I think if we don't correct it, it will be the biggest downfall of our sport.
You're absolutely right. We talked about this last time, but it's one of the biggest things that I try to push with the drivers, try to have a meeting with them. I like always talk to them about my financial things. I'm pretty open book with them. Like, hey, here's what we spent. Here's how I did it. Here's what we pay for, what we don't pay for, and how you can make this happen. So that's something that you're right. I would advocate that all the other Pro-Am guys, Pro-Am sanction body runners, event, you know, organizers, same thing, man. These dudes aren't just your money grab. You got to push them and teach them and teach them how to make money, teach them how to find sponsors so that your event can grow.
Well, and you're now, if you nurture the drivers in your series, if you teach them how to be ambassadors of the sport, if you teach them how to be financially responsible as much as we can be with what we do, if you teach them how to be a representative for another company, all that means is there's more money into their program. Yep. And that means that they will drive more and become better drivers and represent your series more. How many people go to a series specifically to go against a driver or because a driver came out of that program, right?
Yeah.
There are people who go to play. Yeah. Anyways, there are drivers that go to places because they're like, yeah, look at what this program is producing. Look at the drivers coming out of this program. If I want to be the best, I have to drive at the best. I'm going here.
That's what we're trying to produce is, I guess I would first say fun.
I wouldn't say trying. I think you have.
We want a place that's a fun time to drive with absolute rippers and be able to make and get financial sponsors out of it. That was my goal. That was me and RJ's goal when we were like going to other sponsors and talking to them about what we're doing, going to other drivers. And I don't think a lot of people know this. Hot Pit is not an open registration event. It's an invitational, kind of like LZ's, but we're not just inviting who's ever the superstar. We have a criteria on how you can become a Hot Pit driver. And there's a couple dudes who are badass that I literally turned down because, you know, they said, hey, you know, want to do it. Here's my application. And, you know, first off, we want to take full season committed drivers. We want drivers who are skillful. One of the things that's funny is like, if you on your Instagram, I don't even look at like, all right, you got 100,000, you got 1,000. I don't care about that number. I'll look and see, did you promote the events that you went to? Like, all right, you're saying you're prepping your car. Where's the post of you at the event? Yeah. What event are you going to? Where are you going to this weekend? Right? Are you going to Hot Pit? Are you going to US Drift Circuit? Right? Are you going to the Gambler? Did you win? Did you get third place, fifth place? Like, tell me about that stuff. I want to see it. And if you're a driver who's not promoting the events you're going to, you better be an absolute badass or else you're not going to drive Hot Pit. You know, that's the thing. I want dudes who want to promote us so that we can all do bigger and better. And I want your car to look nice. You know, that's one of the things. Like, I wouldn't let my old self drive in Hot Pit. My FC when it was all beat up, no way. Yeah. So now, like, there's dudes who had a beat up car, and I would turn them down. And they're like, "Oh, why not?" I'm like, "Dude, I know you're a ripper, but if I got like Forrest Wang here, JTP, whoever, right? Yeah, I don't want you smashing into them with your beat up ass car because you don't like your car. They love their car. You need to be able to drive with respect, and you know, when you drive with the respect of the other dude." you're just dooring each other, but not smashing each other, it all looks better. And then no one's mad at the end of the day. So that's another criteria of ours, is to make sure everyone's got a nice looking car. So part, again, why it's not open registration. So that professionalism. And then one of the other things that people always ask me is like, well, why don't you take like 60 drivers? And this is not against like clutch kickers or a lot of dudes. It may sound like a dig, but I'm not trying to make money off drivers. Like literally the faster I can figure out how to pay these drivers to be there, we would do that. So we only take 36 drivers, and I want them to get as much practice as possible. So at the end of the day, they're just absolute badasses. We'll take 4 celebrity drivers. That's why you'll see like Odie drove last year, Dylan Hughes drove, and, you know, if they sign up for the whole season, awesome. But I just save 4 spots in case I get, you know, your random badass who wants to come in.
Yeah. I agree with all that. I think it's a phenomenal way to do it. I mean, I honestly, I do sing the praises of Hot Pit whenever I can, because it's just a really good take on what needs to happen. I mean, I would love to see more travel. I am a bit of a proponent of like, you've got to build a team, not just a driver. Mm-hmm. You know, I would say the second reason why we see people drop out is just poor teams, just not bringing in the right people or not able to keep the right people or whatever. And some of that goes back to financial. Like, you know, it'd be great if everybody got paid on a team on a pro-am level. It's not the case. No. I mean, you should hopefully at least have the budget to be able to feed them at a bare minimum. You should be feeding your team, you know, or buying air mattresses or something. Like just, you know, keep them alive. But yeah, like that's why I've always pushed so hard on the travel or being multi-round series. It's because that's how you build a team. That's how you build the camaraderie. You know, you can have a lucky weekend. You can have a good weekend where you don't break. You know, half a winning in drifting is luck.
I guess let me touch on what you just said there. I personally hate shootouts. I think they're stupid. I think that they're cash grabs and not about shootouts at all. Like, I don't know if we said this in the last podcast when I was on, but I feel like a shootout is just, if it's just for money and it's a one-off event for money, sure, go for it. But if it's for an FD license, it doesn't make any sense, you know? Because people can get lucky. Things can happen, and you're totally not ready after one event. But after you're getting your ass kicked for 5 events and still rising up top, I think you're then ready, you know? So this is
I agree.
One of the things. And then, you know what? Another thing is, at least in Southern California, we're lucky, right? I kind of estimate that there's probably like 2,000 drifters in SoCal.
Okay.
You know, be it top level like myself, all the way down to this dude's got, you know, his 240 and he's trying to go up to AVS and mess around. You know, he's definitely just first day learning, but somewhere in between, there's probably about 2,000 of us knuckleheads that are drifting cars trying to have fun. And so Hot Pit has been able to create its place, you know, under FD. And you know, we're rising, not trying to rival FD, but just trying to have a good time, you know, with them. But now underneath of us is we've got 3 other sanction bodies. You've got Flavor Express, you've got Drift Roulette, and then you've got Ultimate Drift Challenge. And so there's now a place for these guys to have their open registration and have dudes come in there and have some fun. And some of the guys that didn't make it into Hot Pit, I told them, hey, you don't got enough skill yet. See if you can go get some podiums at these events, and then we can talk next year. But there's definitely, at least for SoCal, there's enough room to where there's 3 other, you know, sanction bodies that are still pretty badass. And some of them are fully open to tire rules. Some of them have like a 235 class. So that's pretty cool for them and what we're doing. So Hot Pit's able to be bigger because of that.
We've got a bunch of discount codes available for you right now. If you're going out to one of the events, check it out. They have made us a discount code for every single event. Same deal. Saving $5 on a ticket. You can use that $5 for whatever you want. But basically, it is OZ and then the event acronyms. So OZLB, OZATL, OZORL, OZNJ, OZSTL, OZSEA, OZSLC. Don't worry, I'll be giving you that last discount code when I can talk about it. But for right now, use one of those discount codes, go grab your ticket, save yourself $5. Yeah, it's you're feeding your own, right? Like you're growing these drivers up and being able to to push them through the classes and have something to work and strive for too, which is, I think it's key. I mean, anybody that's a B group driver, if you will, there's nothing that they want more than to be with the A group.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. Like if you're C group, like
that bump up.
If we don't have a clear path as to where you go next, what's the ambition?
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of promoting anything with drifting. I don't know if you follow my Instagram, besides the random ass nonsense I put on my stories, you know,
which is great.
Earlier this morning, I saw, you know, Matt Field promoting, his new storage thing that he's got going on. He's got a big shop. Now he's promoting that he's storing drift cars. Like, heck yeah, sharing that.
Yeah.
Odie's doing a field suspension seminar at his shop. You go up there and learn suspension stuff. I'm like, yep, sharing that. Like, I see anything that's drifting and my buddies are doing it. I'm like, yep, let's share that. You know, like there's no competition to me. It's just how big can we make all of us together and have fun?
Yeah. We're not at a point where we have to worry about competition.
No, but some people unfortunately kind of are. There's definitely some mindsets like that. It's unfortunate. You know, that's again, people say about hot pit versus FD, and it's like, dude, that's a compliment in its own. It's crazy that people would think that like hot pit is even anywhere near as big. Like there's a lot of hype on us and it's freaking great. But my whole opinion is like, dude, if there's more events like hot pit, and I hope that there will be, and I hope that other events get as big and bigger right across the whole country, because the more we can create this base of a pyramid, the higher it pushes FD to the top, right? We just need more bases underneath of us, you know, more Pro-Am stuff, more events like hot pit, more events that are LZ World Tour, you know, a type of XDC. Like there's been all kinds of stuff that's come and gone. Riverside Drift, they had their 50K, you know, little shootout thing. That was badass. Unfortunately, that went away. Like I'm always an advocate for pushing all drifting, all elements of it, like promote these dudes so that they can make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's needed. We just have to worry about making the pie as big as we can. Stop trying to steal another slice and just make another pie.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
The promoting and marketing has been such a tough thing, but it's been pretty cool. The announcement, I think, put us up another notch in the level of the, you know, FD Pro license. Agreed. And I do want to touch on that because that's like one of those things where there's plenty of not hate, but questions of like, what do you mean you get a full license?
Bro, I had to double check when I read it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then
so to clarify,
I remembered the roster.
There's the roster. Talking with Kevin Wells, we will make sure that there's at least 2 or more pro drivers that you have to get through. We will make sure that there is probably at least 10 pro spec drivers that you have to get through, right? Like that's just kind of our list of already like dudes who've got a license. And you have to be the champion. It means you have to beat Rome, you have to beat Kyle, you have to be the #1 champion at the top to get this license. And then once all that's said and done, you still gotta get approved by, you know, me and RJ. Like if at that point you're the #1 dude and for whatever reason we felt like it wasn't well deserved, you know, we won't turn it in, but I know that it will be well deserved. For example, Dustin Farrell, our championship driver from 2 years ago, dude was first place. He'd beaten everyone, top of the chain, and it's like, hey, dude, you ready to move up to prospect? Do you want the license? And he graciously was like, thank you. I don't think I can afford it. I'm just gonna do hot pit again next year.
He's a good kid too.
Yeah, the dude's freaking ripper. And then same thing with Blaze Pot this year. You know, he was in third. You had Rome, Luke Fink, and then Blaze. Like, dude, to come in third place with all these dudes, Margaritas, Sam, Megumi, all these, you know, Josh Stewart, all these freaking rippers, you know. And then this dude's not in pro spec, but you know, third place in his FC. So we asked him, same thing. You ready to move up? He's like, nah, I'm not ready. You know, these guys are making smart decisions. They want to build their program before they jump to that. So we'll see if even one of these drivers wants to move up to pro. But it's super rad that we have the ability to send someone to that. But yeah, it's going to be very tough for someone to get the championship, be financially ready, capable to make that move, you know? Yeah. But it's rad.
I hope it happens, but the odds are not in your favor.
No, they're definitely not. And we've got a couple other rippers who are coming in this year. We actually have, as of right now, we have 10 new drivers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every year, you've got your drivers that fall out, financials, whatever's happening, and then new drivers come in. So some of these new drivers have got some insane builds. And I'm like, where did you come up with this thing? Because usually I always advocate, keep it simple. But some of these dudes have some, pro level builds that are coming in. And I'm like, damn, this is going to be a good fight. So I'm excited to see some of these new drivers.
It preps people. It's so hard to explain how much faster Pro Spec's going to be or how much faster Pro is going to be. Like, you can drive against them. You can drive on the same tire, but like once you're there, once it's actually happening, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, that's another thing about HOTPIT. It's a 300 treadwear class. It's a 265 max, 300 treadwear. So none of these dudes are driving on insane tires. It's pretty much more of an equal playing field. So it really helps out keeping that all consistent, even if dudes are bringing out their pro cars. So like Trent Beecham, he won the last round. He was on Nexons, but he was on a 300 treadwear tire. And so was Odie, all the way across. Everyone's on 300. So seeing those dudes rip and move, seeing Odie's car, how fast he was making that thing move. I was like, damn, that's 300, huh? All right.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms, man. He's a magician when it comes to that stuff.
He's got some things in the work for sure. But that's just all going to be awesome to see. One other thing I was thinking about, if for some reason you didn't want to go to Pro Spec and you're like, all right, I don't want to have stock pedals, a stock steering column, right? There's certain rules in Pro Spec, Link ECU. If your car is already fully built, so we've had a few drivers reach out to us because of this. They're like, hey, I thought I was going to go to Pro Spec, but there's all these rules now and my car's already built this way. So that's why we have certain drivers who just drive HOTPIT. Now these dudes might be able to amplify their car, their driving, and move up and not have to go through Pro Spec and follow that set of rules. So one more avenue. Yeah.
I wonder if this will end up opening more doors like this. I don't know of another series that I would feel comfortable opening this up to, because I don't know of another series with a caliber, like a roster that contains this many pro and Pro Spec drivers.
I think
on a
there's going to be
basis.
someone on the East Coast for sure. Me and Chris Jackson talk about it a lot. I mean, there was clutch kickers, right? I keep telling Chris Jackson, he's got US Drift Circuit. I'm like, why don't you, follow more of the clutch kickers format or something, but he is more in the mindset of he wants everyone to be like pro-am dudes fighting for their Pro Spec license, not have pros in the mix and whatnot. So it's a different mindset from different people of how they want to see it happen. But we do know that clutch kickers is coming back, right? They've made their announcements. So I think that's going to be some heavy hitters in the future. So Chris Knapp, Englishtown, Gambler, that's someone who I think has a lot of really good rippers. So I was talking with him earlier today and what he's going to be doing to make his shows bigger and bring in more people. So I think this is just going to open some eyes for some event organizers on a path that they can take, and hopefully they do. And hopefully they can create some better rippers out of it and do something similar, right? Because no matter what, this all just makes drifting bigger all the way around. Yeah,
agreed. And it takes a situation like this to open people's eyes and say like, hey, this is a different path. We're going to try something different and let's see. And I do strongly believe there's going to be a lot of event organizers that are sitting back and they're going to see how the season goes and if somebody is able to accomplish this task and get their pro license. And if it happens, then they might go, hey, Kevin, how can we do this? Like now, and the upside with this too is it means that it's now going to mix up a little bit of the development path. And it provides some options similar to pro sports where it's like, do you do the college route? Do you go into the, minors? Do you go to pro right away? Like, how can you do that? Which makes it more interesting and it makes for better stories and provides, just different ways to get to where you want to be. So the linear path is great, but a linear path can be very constrained and difficult, especially, with some of the regulations within Pro Spec, and it can limit some partnership things as well. So if you do this and you've got a couple other options throughout the country, where you can just make the jump to pro, you're going to see drivers go all in and they're going to build a full pro car that wouldn't match pro spec regulations and go, no, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And then the question will be, how do they do when they're in pro? And that'll be the next, question mark that gets brought up.
Yeah. I think dudes know, I mean, I'm sure you know about drivers that are still in this year and still out this year. It's hard to jump to pro.
Yeah.
Even if you got the skill, even if you've got enough financial backing to get your car around, like the tire scenario is tough, right? That's one of the hardest things in being a pro driver. That's not just a hand me out. That's why I'm super proud to rock this badge right here and work with these dudes. Kumo Tires has been the fact that I got to sign a contract with Kumo Tires, like last year already before going into this. Like I didn't even have to go to SEMA. I'm like, all right, you're taking my car to SEMA. I'm already contract locked in like end of September. Insane. So super stoked on that. Like I'm very blessed to work with Kumo Tires and develop some stuff. So that's the hardest thing for a driver to really make that step into pro. I feel like even coming out of pro spec, it's like, all right, you got the financials for that, but can you afford doubling your tire budget? That's the hardest part for sure for anyone. And then all the other consumables,
Travel and fuel, rig, food, hotels, flights, like
it just adds up, it's a financial thing. And, I've always said a pro Formula D driver, probably a pro anything, but a pro Formula D driver, it's not just that we're the best. It's we're financially able to put a program together. And that's the bigger part of it than anything. Cause there are dudes who I just know are absolute rippers and just kick ass, but putting a freaking program together is just the hardest thing for them.
Yeah. It's hard to acknowledge, but there are drivers who will never make it to pro because of that. That could have been the next champion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
all these freaking sim racers that I'm practicing with, bro, I hop on
crazy,
there
right?
and I am like mediocre. Okay. They're like, oh yeah, pro drivers on here. It's gonna be crazy. I'm like, dude, just be easy on me. Cause they are kicking my ass left and right. The way that they drive on the sim is out of control.
Oh,
it's
nuts.
what I think pro drifting will look like in the next 10 years.
I can see that.
Yeah. They're just 10 years ahead
when
of us.
it's like, when it like the judging is like, oh yeah, our cutoff was a 94.
Yeah.
Like just to qualify, you had to get a 94.
32nd place, 94. Oh my God. Yeah. Door to door.
Absolutely
insane.
nuts.
The, something that's cool is these dudes, the ACS, Discord.
Yeah.
These guys, they have created, well, they have all like these servers that you can hop on. Super rad. They have created AI drift cars that you can go on the track with. And like, I don't know if you'd call it AI anymore. I think it's just a bot. I don't know what you'd call it, but
it's a ghost car.
Yeah, ghost car that you cannot hit. Because if you hit it, it's more solid than you are. If it comes around, it will crush you like a train. But you can tandem with these freaking ghost cars. And so sometimes when I hop on, I'll just hop on and tandem, with the ghost car, 15 minutes, then hop off. Because that's the one thing that does suck about not ACS, OZSTL course is like finding a good drift server,
good people,
cars that you want to drive, whatever it is. So now that they have all that, it's like, oh, cool. Just hop in, get some quick laps in, at least go in their server. There's always someone driving. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I would always tell people that like, does sim work? Yeah, dude, sim, like it relates. It's harder if you're a driver like me who is car first. I'm a driver before I was.
Yeah, traditional.
I played video games growing up my whole life, but it was all with my thumbs, Like Andy Haley. Andy Haley and Ryan Littrell, these dudes have been drifting and like Forza and whatnot forever on the sim. So they were way more used to it. I hopped in there and the only way I can do it is VR. Like when I try to do it with just the TV, it's terrible. I got to have the VR. Really? I got to have like all the things and be in there. Yeah, it helps a lot. As long as you don't get sick. Luckily, none of that stuff gets me sick though.
We've spent so little time in this episode talking about you specifically.
Sorry, I will just ramble about anything and everything.
No, it's good. I'm happy that we're having like a health checkup on drifting as a whole in America right now, and New Zealand and Taiwan as well. But like, I think it's important, and maybe sometimes I get too deep in the weeds of the driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear how your off season's going. Like, how are you prepped? Are you ready to go? How are you feeling?
There wasn't an off season,
Okay.
Hot Pit
Good.
went till November. And then freaking Luke Fink invited me to New Zealand. And then Jim Lau, Formula D, invited me to Taiwan. And so literally it was like, oh, cool. I'll have like December off. And then just still worked, still did things, still prepping and planning, and then like who can work during Christmas and New Year's? That's just that numb week. Made it through all that. But no, I am super fortunate. My partners, Evil Auto Works, is the shop that's my title sponsor right now. These dudes, we're trying to work on something cool for the car updates. I don't think it'll be ready this year. I think we've just decided to see what we can do for the car and maybe mess with it next year. But Evil Auto Works is back on board. Of course, Kumo Tires, all of the guys. Like most of my partners have become legit partners, not just sponsors.
Yeah.
Prisma, NRG, they're working on a new custom steering wheel for me. So we're trying to figure out what that'll look like. Because we sold out of the ones that we had. We had a few hundred of those. So we sold out of the custom JGR racing wheel that we had. So now we're going to go with like the Big Drift Energy. That's our own brand that me and Christina made up. And that clothing brand of ours has, God damn, it's done so good. Like I can't thank the people enough that have bought in so much of our merchandise. It's amazing how, that's a big impact just on the team alone. So that's been huge. Prisma, we wanted to say, I think Big Drift Energy and then like a style of the car. So we're trying to figure out how that'll be. I always make the steering wheel a little bit thicker because my hands hurt when I use a smaller wheel. Like I guess a normal wheel, like a normal, like 330 mil wheel. That's like, they're usually kind of thinner. I like suede wheels, but if you notice any of the wheels that I have or the one in my car, if you ever grab it, it's a little thicker. Kind of like maybe like, it almost feels like, when you put a cover over a stock wheel, like in your car. Yeah. It's kind of, just a little thicker. And I don't know, man, that really helps my knuckles, arthritis, whatever's going on in there, punching things, wrenching things, whatever's happening. Yeah, no, that helps a lot. One of the dumb things that I found is driving across the country, just sitting in the truck like this for hours. I think that's what like hurts my hands the most. Yeah. Gotta like,
do you have like the numb arm or anything like that? Like
just like the knuckles in the hand right there. So I got to remember to not do that. Yeah. No, off season was great. Dogs are chilling. I moved into, I don't know if we talked about this last time. I live in like Riverside area now. So. Yeah. I think you were either just about to start the move or like it was on the horizon. Yeah. Well, I know I was here when we talked about it. But behind me, Christina's like allowing me to actually put up posters of my stuff now. Our old house, like these are all from Larry Chen and I had these. He gave them to me years ago, but I never got to hang them anywhere. And so she's like, all right, you can have your area now. So we've finally like moving in, able to have all my stuff here in one spot. It's been amazing. Yeah. So awesome, still getting my house and work area to be a home. Like it's a year later already, but still, when you have a shop, a house, trailers and things, my staging business that we have, I don't know if a lot of people know that. That's one of the major things that we do for income is staging concert business. So it's Jones Productions. If you ever need a stage for your car show. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. That's one of the most random things that people are like, oh, that trailer's a stage? Like, yeah, dude, that's part of the income right there.
One of my favorite games to play is how can I afford to be here? Like when you go through the FD paddock and you're like, how is this person affording to be there? And my first year in FD, I remember going like, how the hell is Jeff here? I'm like, I can't put this together. Me neither. There's nothing. I'm like, I couldn't Google it. Like there was nothing. And then someone's like, oh, he does like stage rentals. I'm like, what?
It's not
and I'm like,
as big of a revenue as you'd think. Not to put myself down on that, but if anyone's like kind of trying to figure me out, I have been very lucky and blessed by multiple people. Someone who I look up to as like a second dad is Rich Bartle. This dude's like literally a father figure, like to the T, and Chase, his wife, has always helped us out. But they had a ranch, and that's where I learned all of my staging, production, skills. Worked for him since I was 14 years old. And when they retired, I was able to acquire the stage from them. And he's given me all the the mentorship on how to be an endorser and endorsee, how to, you know, be that rock star kind of personality. Cause he came from all just the rock star era. He owned a club in the 80s, like Motley Crue played at his place. Guns N' Roses played at his freaking birthday party. Like, yeah, he's a dude to know. Super rad guy, and very proud of him. And but he like taught me a bunch of things. And so with that, I had a place to keep my trailer. Right, I didn't even have a trailer for the first multiple years. I always borrowed a trailer. My first year of FD, I borrowed a trailer to get to Long Beach. I should have just drove the car because usually I just drove the car anywhere. I borrowed it because I thought it'd be cool. And I remember Matt Powers drove his car. I'm like, I should have just drove my car. And then when we went to
Matt Powers is pretty cool though.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's super cool. When I drove to when we went back to New Jersey, I flat towed my car with my Dodge Dakota. Yeah, I just like straight up, you know, like the bar that's just like on the ball and it just like goes to the truck. Here's a funny story.
Yeah.
So we make it all the way to New Jersey. We're like 50 miles from the track and it's like, I don't know, probably 3 a.m. or something. And it's starting to rain. And we just got to go from like one freeway, whatever they call it, turnpike to the next turnpike down below. I start going down this, you know, off ramp and all of a sudden the car is heavier than my Dodge Dakota, right? I've got my S13 welded diff, extra tires in it, all the gear, all the stuff's in that.
Oh no.
I got my buddy with me right here. And then another buddy behind me. It was Michael and Shelly's behind me sleeping in the truck, right? I've got the like camper shell on it. He's back there. All of a sudden it just starts pushing the Dakota around. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm having to counter steer on the freeway. My buddy Mike wakes up. He's like, oh crap, we're drifting. He's just thinking we're drifting. And he's like, oh crap, we're drifting. And I'm like, dude, hold on. I'm like flooring it so we won't, you know, gotta like stay off the rail.
Power out of it.
Yeah, trying to power out of it. I don't want to just lift off. It's going to like bind. Make it all the way to the bottom, but it ends up, like binding. And we're like, oh man, we got to like get out of here. And then all of a sudden a big rig comes through and we're like, oh crap, we're going to get like smoked right now. So we like run from the car, jump off to the side. Luckily the big rig sees the flashers and like just squeezes by us. Oh. We're like, dude, okay, we got to like unhook the car and just get it out of here. So we were able to like hop in the car, start it, you know, like break it loose from the tow bar that we had from the car to the truck, drive that thing down the street to what I just saw was like some big yellow poles. And I'm like, hey, we could probably strap it to that and like fix the front end crash bar that just got bent up. And that way we can, you know, get the tow bar straightened up, hook up the welder, weld it, fix all this and be back on the road. I wasn't thinking of that, like that big bar, the big yellow concrete post, that was blocking an ATM machine. It was a drive-through bank. And like, as we're already chained to the pole and backing the car up to fix the repair, I'm like, hey, that's an ATM machine. They're going to think we're trying to steal this right now.
Try to steal it.
Oh my God. So we're like, all right, let's just abandon this idea. Forget it. It's fixed enough. We've already pulled it a few times, you know, disconnect the chain. We go down the street. We see a Pepsi machine, and it's got power. I'm like, we have the welder. So now we can fix the bar. So we fixed the bar right there in our PJs, just like welding at like 3 a.m. It's raining, of course. Yeah, fix that. Get everything back together. Make it to Formula D Friday, probably like, I don't know, 12 in the afternoon. And luckily, this is one of the very few events that were rained out. And so they didn't qualify on Friday. And so right as we show up, I should have been qualifying. Like I was legit ready to just hop out of the car, unload it and go qualify at a track I've never been to. Wall Speedway. And I think
great track to do that.
Yeah. Andy Yin was one of the judges back then. He's like, hey Jones, you finally made it, huh? He's like, man, you guys stink. I was like, yeah, we've been in this truck for 3 days, you know, traveling with the boys, driving nonstop. Didn't even tell him what just happened. And he's like, yeah, you're lucky. Qualifying's canceled. So we're gonna qualify tomorrow morning. So I lucked out on that one.
Damn.
But yeah, then qualified in the morning. It was all cool. But yeah, just one of those like dumb stories of getting through life.
I love those stories though, because like I remember hearing Chris Forsberg sleeping in his S chassis like at the first event, like I think D1 driver search or whatever, and it just cements that like everybody has to start from somewhere. Like almost all of you drivers have given me some sort of story. I'm like, Jesus, but like very relatable.
Oh yeah.
You know,
that's the pro story. That's after pro nonsense, you know?
Yeah.
Boys go through hard things trying to make this thing happen.
It's almost needed though.
Yeah, rite of passage.
Like even, yeah, like I'm not like, I don't want to condone like hazing or any of that stuff, but like even drivers who are financially well off, have come into the sport very financially well off for whatever reason, they still have stories like that. There's still situations that they've been in where it's just the most ridiculous thing. And it's just this need to get there, to do the thing, to drive the event. Like it doesn't matter what your background is or how much money is in your account or what car you're driving or how big your toter home is. Everybody's got one of these stories where like just getting there was the entire adventure. And they don't even remember what happened at the round.
Yeah.
They don't remember how they qualified. Couldn't tell you who they battled, but like some crazy shit went down and they still made it to the event.
Oh yeah. I can remember my first year of traveling. Like I remember everything about it. I don't necessarily remember what happened at the rounds, like you just said, but I know everything about traveling, the sketchy hotels we were in,
man.
What was it? I think it was the first or second year. I was like, you know what? We're just going to sleep at the track. We didn't even have tents. We just slept underneath the tables. I think like Ron Bergenholz or somebody woke me up in the morning like, Jeff, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, this is way better to save $100.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's some sort of rite of passage. Like it just, the driving is such a small part of why all of this is so great, whether it's FD or just grassroots driving or just wrenching with your friends, whatever. Like the driving's good, but like I very rarely remember how anything I've done on track or any of that shit is gone. I remember that, if I can digress, second year of Grid Life. We went the first year, it was awesome. And then we invited a whole bunch of friends to come out for the second year. And it was just, there's a bunch of stories I can't tell on here, but all of my friends will refer back to the greatest steak that they ever ate. And it was, we were up all night drinking at like maybe 5, 6 in the morning. We are still drinking. And I decided I'm just going to fry up all the bacon we've got in this giant cast iron skillet. Sure. And we do that. We eat all the bacon and we're still hungry. And I was like, boys, we still got steaks. They're meant for dinner, but like, let's just fry up some steaks. And at this point, it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Steaks go on, sun's coming up, race cars are firing up in the background. We're all, coming out of this stupor. And it was like, was it the best steak we've ever eaten? Probably not. You take it out of that element. Yep. It's probably one of the worst steaks you've ever eaten. But it was the fact that it was like one of the best weekends we've ever had. It was at a racetrack, everything aligned. It was just perfect. And it just happened to be, we were eating steak. And we still talk about it to this day. And I mean, that's what, 12, 13 years ago? And, I remember. Like I don't remember who played the concert.
One of the best things about drifting, it's just the camaraderie of everyone, feeling like you're back with your classmates, having a good time. Talking with the circle track guys, like Orange Show, they'll keep telling us like, man, you guys don't ever get in fights. We're like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, circle track guys always fight at the end of the night. I don't know.
I mean, you and Kristaps came pretty close. But other than that, like, I know.
I mean, maybe, but
no,
it could have been worse.
It could have been. I would have paid to see it, but
we got to get Richie to give us the footage of the rest of that. There's more to that story that never got showed.
I just remember the caption you put in where like it was subtitles and then your caption was like, I ain't afraid of no ghost. And like, I don't know why that stuck in my head, but like, I was like, okay.
Yeah. The round right after that, he broke his car and he was borrowing George K-Pop's car. I don't know how to say his last name. George
Kirakopoulos.
Yeah. Anyways.
K-pop. Like K-pop.
Yeah. I remember George asking me, hey, Jeff, you got a diff I can borrow? And I'm like, you're not driving. He's like, yeah, it's for that guy. And I look right at Chris Dawson, like, for that guy? And I don't even know if he saw me, but I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Go ahead. Like immediately, like, yeah, dude. Like, even if we did fight, I would have probably still let him borrow the diff. Like, heck yeah. I want everyone to drive and have a good time. Wouldn't have mattered.
I really hope that never goes away.
Yeah. I mean, if too much money gets involved, things happen. That's possibly a deal.
Yeah, I don't know, like goes back to like keep drifting fun. Like, you know, just, I think that will always still be there in some regard. Will it always be there at the highest level? I don't know. But I even look at like F1 and like those drivers, yeah, they have their squabbles and stuff like that. But like a lot of them are still great friends, even NASCAR.
Yeah.
I mean, IndyCar, like, yeah, at the track in the heat of the moment, you can say some pretty nasty shit to each other.
Like, you're the hockey dude. You know, you guys just fight in hockey, right? That's just kind of a normal thing.
Bro, I almost got into a fight last night.
See, it's just in your culture, bro. You just want to fight. Circle track dudes want to fight. It's all good.
Maybe.
I mean,
but like, I almost went for a beer with the dude I almost fought right after the game.
That's normally how it is. You get in a fight and then you're best friends.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've had a really rough couple of weeks. So I believe what I yelled at him was, just give me a reason. Like, I think I said, I've had a shit week. Just give me a reason to hit you. Like, it was, I mean, yeah, you just get out your rage in hockey, man. It's great. There's not many sports where you can do that. That and like lacrosse, I think, are the only two sports that are not fighting sports that actively promote fighting.
Well, I think still NASCAR, but yeah.
And circle track
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to watch out who you square up with, though. You never know. Like, I grew up in the
I
valley.
got my ass kicked. This dude was huge. No, this dude was huge.
Fighting for me at a younger age was a pretty normal thing. You know, you grew up in a rough town, but it's like, I don't show that. It's just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You get in fights. Cool. Move on. Now you're friends.
I've only been in maybe a handful of fights in my entire life outside of hockey. And then within hockey, it's fairly regular.
Yeah.
I don't know how you define fairly regular. Maybe one or two a season. I'll like get into
That's a lot.
You know, dust up. I guess. Is it 2 fights in a season a lot?
I don't know. Compared to drifting.
Yeah, that's fair.
See, I think
I've never been in a fight
you guys
drifting.
got all those pads, though. It's like it's made for like boxing, right? You got the gloves on already, so you can go at it.
Yeah, but no, the gloves come off. That's the whole thing. You got to drop the gloves, and then there's like an etiquette as to if you take your helmet off or not. Because like if you have a visor, it's etiquette to take it off because the other guy could cut his hands up. You're like respectfully be like, oh, I don't want you to hurt your hands. Let me take my visor
Take
off.
that off so I can hit your face.
Yeah. I want to punch you right in the cheek.
Yeah,
like
that's
a man.
I don't want to hurt
like,
my knuckle. I want to hurt your face. That's
Yeah, exactly.
that works.
It's weird.
That works.
It's now that you put it that way. Yeah, it's a really weird thing that we do.
Down with that.
Yeah, I mean, drifting's no different. It's a really silly motorsport that we do, but for some reason we just can't think of anything else.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to touch. You know, I don't think I thanked enough or any of my sponsors the last time I was on this podcast, and it's something of due diligence that needs to happen. And I think I can put it in a way that kind of tells a story, so people are not just listening to me thank sponsors. Okay. Something that happened to me, again, back to like, how the hell have I pulled this off? I was not doing a good job my first few years. Literally was just here trying to figure it out. There was a company called CX Racing that sponsored me. I didn't ask for any money, basically. They were like, oh, how much do you spend in a weekend? At the time, I'm like, I don't know. I really didn't even add it up. I just like, how much did I literally spend on that Saturday? Probably $1,000. Not even equating what you'd need to, you know, when you look at like tires that you bought for the whole weekend, gas that you bought for I just like literally was like, I don't know. I think I got a hotel. I think I paid for some food. They're like, all right, we'll give you $1,000, you know, a weekend. And I'm like, all right, cool. Free money. Very dumb decision. Very, very terrible decision. Mm-hmm. But back then, free money wasn't just given out. So I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. Long story short, that went away. And I had DNA Motoring pick me up, which was really cool. It was through a friend, Matt Perkins, is who my spotter is. He was able to make that deal happen. And then I, you know, part of the story, bit my pride and started to do Pro 2 at the time as well. So, because I knew I was getting my ass kicked in Pro, right? I'm like barely making 32nd place here, 31st. And that was the time where they're like, hey, we're going to kick you out if you don't, you know, make it in the 32. If you're like 33, you're out. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do Pro 2 as well to secure my license. So I started doing good in that and I got a podium. And then within that, these dudes, Doc called me, sent me an email. And they're like, hey, Jeff, we just saw you get a podium. I thought that was really rad. Thought, you know, you look pretty cool up there. And, you know, are you accepting sponsorships right now? And I was like,
so cool.
damn, this never happens. You know, by the way, it's almost like it never happens.
No, it really doesn't.
And so, yeah, don't get it twisted. This never happens. And so I go to my brother. I'm like, dude, how do I tell them fuck yes? Like super fast. So I'm like, Greg, can you please like write an intelligent letter to these dudes? So Greg is my brother, my older brother, and he's who I would jump to because he's a business guy. He doesn't know about cars and drifting as much, but he's just a business savvy dude. So I'm like, all right, you need to be the one that helps me figure this out. And so that's how we'd figured out most of our things in sponsorship. He introduced me to Doc. Well, not introduced me. He replied to the email, you know, an intelligent way instead of me saying, fuck yeah, give me money. And they sent me, a 12 pack. And that's all I had for New Jersey. We made some content with it and it's pretty much all we had for that year. But then the next year they're like, hey, we got some money. You know, what's sponsorship look like for you? How do we do this? And they were just going to be a small sticker on the side of the car. DNA Motoring couldn't sponsor me that next year because they bought some buildings in Texas. Some money was spent. I'm like, well, these guys are going to give me money. Why don't we just give them the door and see if we can make something bigger out of it? We gave them the door and they're like, well, budget's already been spent on, what do you call it? On just cash budget. We can't give you any more money. It's like, but we do have budget for branding. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, wrapping your car, t-shirts, things that have our logo on it. Expenses.
Things we can write off.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, how much of that budget do you have? And they're like, oh, well, we spend way more money, you know? So that's when I was able to get that big ass, I don't know if you've ever seen my like 20 by 20 Easy Up. It's like a $5,000 tent that I have. And so they bought that for me. It had the logos on there, wrapped the car. You know, they took care of anything that had the logo on it. And I was like, this is great. And so Doc is actually WizPack, which is a distribution company for Pepsi. So it's a product of Pepsi, right? They make it. And so with that came a really smart marketing guy named Zach. Dude was able to help me out a lot. And going back and forth between him, my brother, and just figuring out ideas is how we figured out how to not just be a jackass at Formula D, but how to be a jackass who understands a little bit more about marketing and what they actually wanted in return. So that's when like all the videos started to come about and all the, you know, some of the shenanigans that people kind of know me now for, I guess just being myself, right?
Yeah,
but being able to promote
really is you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started to be myself. You know, that came about. That's how that came. And then how I started to become more of a pro driver and be myself. And then some of these other guys, you know, fell into place. Duraflex is a company that sponsors the body kit on the car, but that wouldn't have happened in an S14. I switched to the 370 for marketing reasons. People always ask me, oh, do you like the 370? Is it a better car than the 14? I'm like, not necessarily. They're probably, obviously James Dean kicks ass in a 15, right? It's the same car. I'm like, it was a marketing decision for me. It was close enough to a 14 suspension wise. It wasn't like way separate different. I mean, the rear subframe is literally like a 14, like upside down, the way that the arms work in the back of the car. The way the front of the car is a little bit different. But nevertheless, I reached out to Part Shop Max and talked to Tommy Roberts over there and Dan. And I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about if I ran this car? And actually, here's a side note. I was thinking about building a Camaro in 2018. Ooh. Yeah, I almost did. And probably luckily I didn't, because I wouldn't have been able to at the time. I wouldn't have been able to afford to like develop the chassis, right? And so Part Shop Max was like, we will support you if you run the 370. We will not, because we don't have anything for a Camaro. Yeah. So that was the deciding factor.
Because nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. Luke Longberger does, Blue 808. Oh, yeah, he's like the only guy that does. So I do have a Camaro now. I eventually will start working on that thing. I've been very slowly doing stuff with that. That's a side project. So we'll see if I get to that. But yeah, so that's kind of, you know, these sponsors that have been helping me out that are still on board, that have been a part of it for a long time. Like I said, the Duraflex body kit. And then Matt, who is still my spotter, DNA Motoring came back on board. They work with CA Auto Parts. People don't know that I actually do YouTube a lot, at least recap videos. So people are like, oh, why don't you get into YouTube? I'm like, dude, I've been YouTubing for like 5 years now. No one ever sees it. So they pay me to do my recap videos. So I don't play them on my own YouTube channel. I make a recap video of Formula D for DNA motoring, and I give that to them, and they put it up on their channel. Sometimes, I don't know, it's weird. I've seen one video that got like 200,000 views, and then most of them get like 200 views. So, but
Happens.
they pay me for those videos, and they're totally stoked about it, and that works. So that's something, you know, that some dudes can promote to other sponsors, you know, like here's some videos I can cater for your YouTube if they see more value in it. You know, I'm playing more of the, what would you call it? The short game on that one. Because I'm getting paid now to do it versus the hoping it pans out in 10 years. Because I don't know if that ever will. That's a tough one. Same thing.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a gamble.
CA Motoring, they're another company that's, I do other videos for them, but we just do like a flashy video. Something that's like 3 minutes and cool for them. Yeah. Yeah. But all these guys, man, Top One Oil is someone that Kyle introduced me to when we were teammates together. So that was a brand that we got to push. And that actually took me to China one year. So I've got all the same brands and companies that have been with me for, man, I don't know. I think Doc is like, we might be on 10 years now. No, I think 8 years, I think. Yeah. A lot of brands that have been pretty stoked with the nonsense that we do.
Has Doc done a zero sugar yet?
Yeah.
I haven't
They have a zero. Yeah. 90% of the time when you see me drinking it, it's the Doc Zero. Usually when I'm doing the promotions, I use the regular one.
Yeah, I might have to jump and steal one of those because they're only their distribution's like narrow.
This is the regular one. The black label is the Doc Zero one.
Got it.
Yeah, and when they sponsored me in like 2016, I drank way too many of these. I was a bigger dude then.
Yeah, you've slimmed down a little bit.
It's not in a few years. People just say that for some reason. I've been the same fat for at least the last 5 years.
Maybe it's just moved around.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
it's just settled in new areas.
Yeah. I'm not bloated today, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. No, I've been this fat for at least.
Dude, the race suit can hide like 20 pounds.
Yeah,
like
stay wearing black.
Why do you think this is my entire...
At the end of the day,
how
how much we sweat out, I'm sure we've lost some pounds.
I would actually it'd be very interesting to see how much you guys lose. I can lose up to 5 pounds of water weight in one hockey game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably somewhere near that, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't have a cool
believe
suit,
it.
so I'm in there sweating my butt off.
You're wild.
Yeah, I figure if the boys are sweating working on the car, I'm sweating in the car. It would probably help me. They've all tried to convince me to get one, but I don't know. It's my method of losing weight.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I literally have a taped on the wall of my sponsors because I was like, man, last time I did not thank them. So I was like looking at my like notes. You're looking down at your notes. I got notes.
I have the teleprompter, right? So like I'm staring behind the scenes here for everybody, staring right down the barrel of the lens, but like there's a screen in front of it. It's like, if you're gonna do a podcast remotely, this is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. And then I have a screen right up there that's just above it. My old studio, I used to have a TV that was behind it, so I could kind of like look past it. But then I was reviewing the footage, and what happens is when you change where you focus, your eyes do this. They separate to pull focus. So you would see me looking at the person, and then all of a sudden my eyes would like drift off because I'm looking at notes.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I see you checking
so
down
instead
every now
it's
and
like
then.
a glance up. Yeah, I've got that, and then I also fidget like a lot. That's why I like the camera's position.
Yep.
So I've got like a little spool of wire that's quiet because my audio dude will get real pissed if I start clicking things.
Oh, that's funny.
So I have to find very quiet fidget items that I can play with.
Yeah, I'm sure he's like,
even though he can probably
loving me
do
every
this
time I
too.
take a drink and chew ice.
It's fine. That's why I pay Jay the big bucks.
There you go. Thanks, buddy.
He has a very thankless job, but he does a phenomenal job at what he does. So yeah. Between him and Kyle, man, I couldn't put this show on without them.
Which one's Kyle?
Kyle's the editor, so he does like puts all the clips together. He's the one who like puts the episode together. He'll send me notes of like, hey, do we need to cut this?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Sweet.
And then,
Make me look good, Kyle. Skinny it up.
Yeah, good. Yeah. There you go. See, it's just the weight's moving around.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. You gotta just put your chin forward. Do you know who Nikocado Avocado is? No. Anyways,
I love
he was
avocados,
a TikTok
though.
dude who like, okay. So did he. He used to make like mukbang videos where he would just like eat food on the internet.
Right.
And dude packed on like 180 pounds doing this, right? As you do, eating on the internet.
Sure.
Then, long story, the guy pre-records like a year and a half worth of videos, just eating food and shit. And then just goes on a massive weight loss journey while all these videos are still playing.
had a plan.
And then one day is just skinny, like just shows up on the internet 180 pounds lighter. And he was talking about how he had all this excess skin because of it, but he would film all of his videos with his chin as far forward as he could so it wouldn't look like it.
Yeah. That's like when the girls want to take a photo. It's like, no, it's got to be up top. You got to turn.
It's got to be up top. Yeah, you gotta do it like this.
Like, no, man. How do
yeah. Hey, I mean, I admittedly, I started doing jaw exercises because I was so jealous of what Frederick Osbo's jawline
never
looked
get
like.
that chin.
I know I could never get there. Never. No, but
That's a Thor chin right there.
I definitely tried. It's epic.
Most,
And the man is a face chiseled from stone.
yeah. You're silly, dude. You totally threw off my list that I had. I was trying to get down in my story.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you got to get back to it,
No.
go for it.
I was almost done with all of them. I think the last thing I had was clutch wheels. I don't know if you saw my white wheels that I have now. It actually have my name on them.
Really?
Yeah. They're pretty stoked about that. I can't think of what the heck the wheel's called right now. X something two. No.
Something.
No, they
JJ's.
Yeah, it's got JJR on it. It's got Jeff Jones Racing. And Alex Martini just did a video about it. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. That guy's,
Oh, I did see that. He had them. He had like the wheel cover on it at the intro.
And he takes it off.
I didn't watch the whole video.
Yeah, watch that. That's my wheel. And what was cool about that, and this is one of those things when you work with the wheel company long enough, they actually listened to what I wanted to do because they gave me a couple SLC2s, and Rome was sponsored by them for a while too. The SLC2s were cool, and then they gave me some wheels that I just did not like. They look like waffles. They were heavy. Okay. They were very hard to mount and dismount. Got rid of those finally. And I was like, hey man, I need light wheels, like really light wheels. Like how do we make these wheels that you want to give me lighter? And so they're billet wheels that they're, machining. So I'm like, take out any weight possible. So like literally when you see Alex's video, I mean, I guess they do weigh 21 pounds, still not as light as they could be, but much lighter than what they were. They were able to take off, I believe they said almost 5 pounds from the original design. And that's a lot.
Jesus.
I'm like, wherever you can drill a hole, wherever you can thin out a spoke, wherever you can do whatever you want to do. And so that's what they did. Like there's just wherever they could drill a hole, they thinned out the spokes. And so like in FD last year, they don't bend easily, but if you take a good whack, they're going to bend easier than they probably would have. But that's good because it didn't break suspension. So this is one of those things. It's like a good bending breaking point that's lightweight. So I'm like, that's really rad.
I've started to see, I like to hang out at the tire changing area quite a lot.
Yeah, tire stacks.
So I like to and I like to see tire wear and where everybody's at and stuff like that. And I've noticed, won't name names, I've noticed quite a few wheels now with almost knurling right before the bead. And that seems to be fairly common. I want to say 3-4 years ago was the first time I saw it. And now I'm seeing it pretty regularly.
Do you think it works?
I don't know. I do know one driver that said that they get, I'm going to say a number and it's going to end up being wrong. Someone's going to prove me, but like, let's say 180 degrees, the tire can rotate on the wheel during a run.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think this is going to like stop that as much, but I guess to stop any slippage or any chance of it rotating off the bead is what the idea is. But I don't know if like that digs into it or just having a flat sealed edge is better. I have no idea. But I have seen that like the way that lips are designed now, I'm seeing that change as well, where it's I guess harder to mount, but that also means that tires aren't debeating as much. So
yeah, we get about 2 inches maybe of wheel rotation on the rim, on the wheel, tire on wheel. My my buddy Adrian from Evo Auto Works, he hates it when I say rim, so I'm just gonna say rim.
Oh, it's his wheel.
Yeah, wheel. Yeah, Evo Auto Works sells a lot of wheels, so he's like all about that. He's like, oh no, it's not a rim, it's a wheel. Whatever, bro, it's a rim. I'm calling it a rim.
I had a consulting call with a wheel company today about that. And I was explaining that like, not everybody calls it a wheel. And some of those people may purchase your product. So you got to be a little open to using the word rim. even if you don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't well received, but it still came up in conversation.
Right? I don't know. It's a rim. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fight me.
Fight me.
But
Start
we
calling
get
it
about,
rims.
I think about 2 inches. So what we'll do is we'll mark it at the valve stem, right? Just a line right above the valve stem. That way, if it moves, you can just see, how much is rotating. I think if we ever see it like rotating more than that, it's probably questionable. Like, all right, did they use lube on that sticker? Like, what's going on? But usually we'll ask Frank and Tire Stacks, hey, put it on as dry as you can. Try not to, put any lube on that sucker, because that's the first thing that's going to make it debead. Yeah. And I actually wasn't even that low on air pressures last year. The Kumo tires were a struggle. I think, I think I was pretty, transparent about that. They had great grip at first, but then getting them to last 2 laps was kind of the problem. So, I will say, kudos to them, because literally they flew out their engineer twice, had him sit in my car, take notes. I would send them back my old scrubs. Like, they listened to me all year long, and now they're coming back hard. We, spoiler alert, we do have a 295/40 coming in. So we do have a big badass tire. They did take all the notes that I gave them throughout the year. So they fixed certain things with more tread in some sections, some of the not delaminating. It never delaminated, but it had a stringing problem on the edges where it would wrap around the brakes. They were able to change the carcass or whatever wheel design you can call that. So there's 6 major key factors that they changed. So I think that tire is going to be a freaking animal once we're able to get it. So
that's I almost prefer hearing that,
right?
Than a tire company coming in and being like, yeah, we've got this. And that's what we need. That's what we want.
Like,
someone who
think about how cool that is, right? This is Kumo Tires, a huge manufacturer of tires. And they're like listening to me and making a change of development on this tire. And this is going to be sold globally to everyone. Yeah. So it's just another thing that I got to be involved in. I think that is super cool. And like, that drifting is literally changing the design of a tire that's sold globally across the world. And so it was a great tire for road racing and time attack and rallycross, not rallycross, what do you call it? Autocross. But they didn't have the heat temperatures that we would get the tire to. They weren't wearing it down the way that we were. They weren't stress leveling it the way we were. So now that they're like, all right, we know how to make this tire even better. And thanks for the input. And they applied it. And so now, I mean, it took a while, right? Obviously, these guys can't do it overnight. They're a huge manufacturer. There's DOT things. There's insurance things. They want to make sure it's good for everyone. But yeah, we're going to have a badass tire next year. I wish I could announce all the badass drivers we're going to have, but we'll leave that to them.
Dude, I have been deep in the throes of who's signing with which tires this year. Holy cow. I don't know if this is going to come out. This will probably come out after the announcement, because I think the announcement's tomorrow, but there's some wild shifts where I was like, there's no way they went to that.
I think Kumo is going to be definitely fighting at Nitto's heels right there for sure.
I've heard that Nitto is one of the biggest changes.
Yeah. In a good way or bad way? Can you say?
Depends on who you ask, man.
Yeah.
Depends on who you ask.
Nitto is the team that's like, I'm just buying all the top tier guys, right? Yeah. But I think Kumo is able to pick up some dudes this year that are absolute rippers. That's going to be cool. So I'm stoked for the new teammates.
I'll have to tell you. I'll talk to you off air. That's not one, because I don't know when this is going to come out, and I've been told the announcement's going to come out on this day, but knowing my luck, I don't have to like get rid of a whole section. But regardless, tires this year, another hot topic.
Yeah, you boys listen to this, need to start doing some Googling, start figuring out what some drivers are doing, look at some behind the scenes stuff. Like, because I mean, it was a bummer that we lost Vitor and Nexon. I can speak openly about that. It's like we need as many tire manufacturers as we can in the sport. And so there's a couple drivers that were a part of those teams, that got to figure out a home and a place. And so it's going to be a pretty good mix up this year.
Yeah, it'll be good. The Vitors were pretty epic. The Nexons have just been around forever. I mean, it's sad to see they just kind of waned away, but it is what it is. And we move on. We push forward. And I've already heard rumors of other tire companies that have been testing. And there's 2 in particular that have been testing for close to 2 years now that just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, hoping to see some of the other dudes come in. We definitely got to change topics because we're floating on way too many spoiler alerts.
Yeah, you can start putting things together.
The things I found out when I was in Taiwan from other drivers, because I got to hang out with all the overseas drivers from Japan, from Europe, from everywhere. I was like, oh yeah. We were sitting there by the campfire, having some sauce, and I was like, damn,
dude. Drifters, we love us some gossip. We love us some tea, man.
Yeah. Decent respect on not spilling the beans. Let everyone, tell their stories the way that they want to. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a few of those people lined up in episodes and stuff like that too. So I'm hoping to be able to talk to them about how those situations came to be. But sick, dude. I mean, you got everybody?
Yeah, no, sponsors are covered. Thanked all the boys this time. Didn't forget to do that. Do my work. We talked about Hot Pit, how excited I am. I don't know if I said it. March 8th, Hot Pit Autofest. That is our season opener. We're going to be doing it with Circle Track, guys. So we're actually going to have 3 divisions of Circle Track, late model, Legends, and Enduro. Cool. So we're trying to just blend everything.
Dude, Legends cars are wild.
Those things are super cool. So we're trying to just blend all the elements, try to see what we can do to do that. I mean, that's why we called it Hot Pit Autofest, not just a drift event. We want it to engage all types of elements of things. So that's going to be super rad, Again, thank you to the boys that took me to New Zealand, the dudes that took me to Taiwan, drifting all across the country, and if I can ever just say anything to the rest of the drifters out there, dude, just promote your local events, not just because I'm an event runner, but because if you like drifting and you want to see it become bigger than it already is, and you just want it to last and stay around, you got to fight against these electric cars and EPA and everything else, bro. You got to promote. You got to be there. Yeah. You got to be a part of what we're trying to do. So, push it.
Got to show up.
Yeah, you got to show up and keep it simple. God damn it. Oh, that's something that I wanted. That's something that I wanted to say. The most humbling thing was driving a right-hand drive car. Oh my God, was I a klutz on Friday. Dude,
just hitting the wipers.
Bro, I'm so glad I got an hour, not even an hour's worth of practice on the sim. I finally got the thing over to my left hand, but dude, my left hand was all over the place. I was very lucky because I knew once I initiate it with the handbrake or whatever and just got both hands back on the wheel, the feet are in the right spot. So I knew I'd be okay. But the last turn in Topo has it's a handbrake turn. And I put it up on Instagram, but I go flying into that for my second qualifying run. And I'm I'm going big this time. Yeah, I reach over and luckily it's a sequential. Well, not luckily, but it's a sequential transmission. I grabbed that sucker and I put it into 5th real hard. I'm sitting there turned out. I'm I'm clutched in 5th gear. I'm no. I had to jam it back and forth, grab the handbrake, push the handbrake back in, clutch out, go for it. And kind of botched that run, but I was very lucky to qualify high. I got a 94 on my first run, but that was more of just do the fundamentals with the hand and get back to the, steering and the brakes and the gas. But that just shows you practice is more important than having a badass car, because that was a car that could have won the whole thing. A couple small changes I would make if I drove it again, but it could win the whole thing, but I just didn't have enough practice in it. Right. So badass driver, badass car, but no practice with right-hand drive. I sucked. So when it came time to tandem, I was lost again. I was able to qualify. Tandem, that was, I was just, a dude on his first day again. So I think that just really promotes you need to practice. So I actually, after I got back, I text Connor Shanahan. I'm hey man,
I was going to say,
I just want to tell you, you're even more of a badass for freaking
the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. For just hopping in, left-hand drive car and just crushing it all year long.
Yeah. The whole time you're telling that story, that's all I could think of. And I'm that just shows,
Yeah. By the 3rd day, I was feeling much better and okay. But yeah, it takes some freaking practice, and it was very humbling. I was in there looking like a klutz, just I luckily didn't.
It's good to be humbled sometimes.
I didn't punch the driver door. I heard Ryan Turk and someone else may have punched the driver door when they went back a long time ago. But I did go to the wrong side of the car twice. Like, all right, it's time to go drive. Yeah, and like Luke Fink and the rest of the team was like counting. Only twice.
Twice isn't
We
too
had a
bad.
bet of 7
That's not
over
bad.
the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Hopefully you won something.
no, I didn't win anything. But I felt better about it. But there was so many like conscious decisions of like, all right, it's time to handbrake. So, you know, it was like milliseconds happening in your brain where it's normally it's like, bah. Now it's like, oh, it's this one. Okay. You know, just
It's not second nature
not
anymore.
at all. But I enjoyed it. It actually makes me want to possibly build a right-hand drive car for future training, just because it's difficult,
There you go.
right? It's
Yeah.
something that was a challenge, and I'm like, I like a challenge. That was cool. Might want to do that just for the challenge aspect of it.
Right-hand drive Camaro. Just do it.
Right? Right-hand drive Camaro 1J. Piss the world off. Rotary. That thing wouldn't get out of my driveway if it was rotary. How would I load it into the trailer? It'd stall.
15 speed. Just big truck, like transport truck
Burn the
transmission.
clutch up trying to get up on the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yep.
That's Jeff's next
There you
car.
go.
Right-hand drive.
That's the plan.
Yep.
But yeah, dude. Thank you.
Dude, I appreciate it. No, this is awesome. This is exactly what I needed. I remember when you and I were texting back and forth. I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, all right, I just want to shoot the shit for a few hours.
Shoot
I'm
the
like,
shit. Talk about
I can do
drifting.
that.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's good. RJ's pushing me hard to come out to Hot Pit. So I'm going to try. I'm looking at dates. We'll get something figured out, but I got to make it at some point and see this. So
Yeah. You know what?
experience it in person.
I will, I mean, I guess we can leave it in here. Maybe we'll cut it out. I don't know. I can tell you where our last round is going to be.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is coming out in 2 weeks, so I think it'll make the cut. I'll text you if it doesn't.
Please. Well, Jeff, this has been
Had a
fantastic.
great time, dude. I'm glad no one heard that secret we just talked about.
I'm glad. Yeah. And if you did hear the announcement, awesome. And if you didn't, keep an eye out for Hot Pit because there's something massive that's going to be announced real soon. Sick, dude. Well, dude, honestly, thanks again. I'm really looking forward to Long Beach. I'm counting down the days. I've got drifting withdrawal so bad right now. But yeah, thank you for everything you do for the community. Obviously, Hot Pit is it's massive, and I hope you guys get as much praise as you deserve because it's helping to feed the next generation. We're seeing incredible drivers coming out of there, and I'm glad you're able to turn it around and even with Irwindale make everything happen. So that's not easy.
Thank you. Appreciate what you're doing here, and I can't wait to hear you at Drift Masters. Yeah, you're gonna have a busy year.
I think I can bring out the Canadian accent.
There you
more.
go.
I think that's what I have to do. Yeah, all the accents. All right, dude.
Later.
I'll talk to you soon.